Gentlemen, I believe that we are now on air and live. Welcome to the broadcast, to the webinar. I see a lot of folks on the line. Thank you so much for attending and showing up live. Usually when I do these things, most of the people who sign up for it end up just showing up for the recordings. That's their loss, first of all, because I think so much happens in the dynamic space here, being live and being able to ask your questions and that kind of thing. But while it's some disadvantage to them, it's a huge disadvantage to me when those people don't show up live, because your questions really make this. I see Matt typed in, "Hello, Alex, does this work? I'm looking forward to this webinar." Thanks, Matt, and thank you, because I was just going to ask somebody to test and make sure that worked. You took care of that for me. I think that means that you all can hear me, which is a big plus. Quick little bit of housekeeping. First is that you are on an enormous delay. It's like a really lengthy delay. So if I ask you guys to type something in, I'm going to have to yak and fill up a lot of space before you hear that I've asked you to type in, and then you'll type in and I'll see it immediately. So first of all, there's that delay, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. At the end of the little prepared piece that I have, we'll do some live Q&A, and at that point you can actually come on the line live with me, and there will be no delay for that. And then when you go off the line, you come back onto the webinar, you'll be able to watch the last couple of seconds of yourself, which will be trippy and bizarre, because you'll go back into delay land, if you go back at all. Anyway, so that's a little bit of housekeeping. The other piece of housekeeping is that I've got an electrical storm going outside. I could get kicked off of this thing. I really hope it doesn't happen. If I do get kicked off, please just stay on for a couple of minutes to see if I don't come back. It may be just a momentary blip. Sometimes an electrical storm will just knock out your internet for a minute. And if that happens, I'll come back in. So give me a minute to make sure that I'm not, really knocked out completely. So that's kind of housekeeping. Like I said, electrical storm. If I suddenly drop out, give me a minute. I'm going to try and dial back. I can usually get back in. Hopefully that won't happen. And we'll do a big Q&A at the end. So welcome and thank you for being here. This is an experimental subject for me. This webinar is material that I've never taught before except to private mentees. And I just want to assure you right up front that I am going to over-deliver the shit out of this. This is such great stuff, and it's not something that I ever intended to teach. There's a lot of guys out there, a lot of colleagues of mine, a lot of friends of mine who teach how to meet women, how to get a girlfriend, all this kind of thing, and a lot of their products are excellent. I know you may have been reading along in my story chapters over the past week, and I think that there may have been some sense that I have some contempt for the PUAs, the pickup artists, and all that. And I don't. I think your stuff is brilliant, and I'm a big fan of sex. Obviously, I teach it, and I'm a big fan of intimate, devotional, monogamous sex. But I'm also a big fan of one-night stands and just sex in general. And I know not everybody who reads my stuff is into both of those things. Some are into one or the other. But I think they're both totally acceptable. I have no problem with my readers going out there and pimping it and just having a great time with a lot of women. My hope is that they do it authentically, that they don't try and deceive women or lead women on, or do some shady business in order to get with women. I don't think it's necessary. Women love sex, and my aim with this webinar is to show you how to kind of unlock that natural love of sex in women so that you can have more sexual relationships with women. I just got a greeting from Siberia, Russia, the last repository of true women left on Earth. Russian women are beautiful. My wife is Russian. Anyway, I just want you to know that this material is fantastic, and the reason that I've decided to teach it is not as a replacement for anything else you might be learning in terms of attraction, meeting women. I'm sure it all has value. It's not a replacement, but it's just something that I haven't seen anywhere else, and nobody else is teaching this. There are guys that are teaching similar things. There's nobody who's teaching this, and so I pretty much had to come out and do it. this is incredibly valuable material. It will change the way you relate to women. It'll change the way you relate to yourself. And it really, if you follow along with this stuff, and I can land it for you, as I have with mentees in one-on-one calls, it's going to really dramatically change the way that you relate to women in a powerful and beautiful and amazing way. And certainly my goal with this is that you, if you're watching this, or anybody else, should be able to have as much sex in their life as they want. It's not like you can walk up to any woman that's ever lived and be like, you, me, right now. That's absurd. That's stupid. But there's a lot of women out there who are really would be very attracted to you if you didn't screw things up, and would be very happy to have sex with you or be in a relationship with you. And a lot of men don't get that. They literally, I didn't get that for a long time. I remember an experience with a woman who was telling me that girl, in terms of women who were interested in me in a public setting that I didn't know, and I unerringly could prove her wrong by walking up and sabotaging it. So I want to show you how to not sabotage it. I'm going to switch now to a little screen share. I've prepared a little PowerPoint so that I can make sure that I go through all of this stuff. You can type questions in the status bar. You can write them down. At the end, we're going to do Q&A. I probably won't be able to see the Q&A through my little PowerPoint screen, so but I will get back to it. And of course, I'd love to take your questions live. I'll give those priority. And I am going to hit the old screen share right now. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So I've been through a couple of names on this thing. You've probably seen like 9 names of it. Basically, it's how to get chicks, right? How to get girls for dating, for sex, for relationship, without the indignity of having to, pick up chicks, which may or may not be a bad thing, but it certainly has gotten a particular spin, a particular name. I think that, for a lot of women, this idea of, picking up chicks is a bit negative. And I think for a lot of men, it's become negative too, because it's been sort of repossessed by folks who want to make it into a kind of a trickstery thing. But let's get started with a couple of questions. I like to ask a couple of questions at the beginning. That always makes it kind of interesting, so you have something to contemplate. The first is, why do men want pickup lines? And in case you're not sure that men do want pickup lines, let me assure you that they do. My friend David D'Angelo, who was kind of the first big guy who really made a giant business out of selling, dating advice, how to meet women advice. His most expensive search term that he made the most money on in Google AdWords was pickup lines. Men want pickup lines, and they want somebody else's words or some tested sentence or words or opener that is going to allow them to walk up to a woman they don't know and start a conversation. And I want to know why men want pickup lines. I think most men are aware that, the pickup line doesn't do much. That hi is totally acceptable. Like, hi, my name is Alex, works like crazy if indeed you've got the horsepower to back it up. And if you don't have the horsepower to back it up, really what's this pickup line going to do for you? But men want pickup lines. And why is it more difficult to be charming or to just be yourself when you're around attractive women? Most of us act like incredible dorks when there's a beautiful woman around. We say shit that we just wouldn't say. Just a brief story. I was in a relationship for a long time, many, many years ago in my 20s, and there was a woman at the gym who was extremely beautiful, and we always worked out at the same time. She was just like eye-poppingly beautiful, and we had this really sweet, flirtatious relationship, and I was in a relationship. I wasn't going to do anything about it, but it was just the sexual innuendo was flying. I could tell that she was really into me. Actually, her friend told me she was into me, which was kind of disturbing because, I really, didn't want to cheat on my girlfriend. Anyway, girlfriend and I broke up, and the first thing I thought after, oh God, crushing heartbreak was, I'm going to try and get with this girl at the gym. And the very next morning I went to the gym, and it was like instantly I had become like this weirdo. Like suddenly I was weird, and everything I said was, just a conversational abortion. So why is that? Why is it more difficult to be yourself with attractive women? Why does the sentence, women don't want you to know this, works so well in marketing to men. And again, in case you're not sure if it works well, it works like crazy. All of the current most successful businesses that sell, dating advice on how to pick up chicks have some form of this within the first few seconds of their sales video, those scrolling text videos. The first thing they tell you is the feminists are trying to shut this down. Women don't want you to know this. And that's, first of all, it's bullshit, right? I mean, that is a marketing ploy. It's a lie. It drives me insane. I have spoken to many of my colleagues who have rather decent products, rather decent programs, about removing that sentence, but they won't do it because it works so well. Why is it that women don't want you to know this somehow makes us like, oh, cool, then that's what I want to buy? Food for thought. And then finally, why do men believe they have to trick women into liking them? And this should be self-evident from looking around the world, looking at your friends, the pickup lines, the women don't want you to know this. Most men believe, even men that get a lot of women, which is bizarre, but especially men that don't get a lot of women, believe they have to trick women into liking them. There's going to be some trick to it, when in fact, if you have some female friends, you're probably aware they're really dying for men to do something so that they can like them. It shouldn't take a trick. They want to like us. Anyway. Here are the qualities that attract women. I just keep those questions in mind as we go through this. I think you'll find that it unlocks some interesting things in your brain. Here are the qualities that attract women. This is probably not the entire list, but it's a good list. It's a solid list. These are the things that really powerfully attract women. Where I got this, among other places, was I've talked to thousands of women about this. I've done extensive surveys around this. And I'll tell you that these things are in reverse order. These are really top attractive qualities to women in terms of what they're looking for in a date, not just what they're looking for in a friend, what they're looking for in a man who they want to have a sexual relationship with. These are the top qualities. And one of the interesting things that I just want to put this into context with is Neil Strauss, who runs Attraction Academy. He's the guy that wrote The Game, and I'll also mention now is a company called Attraction Academy. Neil used to tell me that women have like a 10-point scale like men's, but it's a little different. For men, the 10-point scale really only has to do with physical attractiveness. A 10 is a woman who's very beautiful, and a 5 is a woman who's of average appearance, etc. But Neil said that when women look at men, their 10-point scale is a little different. There's a lot of different things that can give you points, and if you can get to 10, you can be a 10. But it wouldn't just be about your appearance. You could be Brad Pitt and be a 10 just for your physical appearance, even though you didn't have to have anything else. You'd just immediately be a 10. But you could be a guy who's only had a 2 on a physical appearance and make up for it with all these other things by being a 5 in sense of humor and a 2 in being able to get her into good parties or whatever. And eventually you could make yourself 10 additively. That is, I believe, very true of women. I think that they're looking for a rather broader set of qualities, and excellence in several of them can trump excellence in one of them. So the obvious ones that everybody knows about: looks, money, status, personality. I kind of put them together because I think that they're of about equal level. I'll say money is the least interesting to women. In fact, there's probably an equal number of women who think a guy with a lot of money is hot, sexy, and desirable, as there are women who have just, are kind of repelled by it. Like a guy with money is probably, a greedy, weird corporate guy and not my type at all. So I think that there's a lot of women that are very suspicious of money. And in fact, if you watch a bunch of chick flick romantic movies, there's usually a rich guy and a nice guy, and the nice guy always gets the girl, not the rich guy. And these are basically movies for women, so it's pretty true. You'd be hard pressed to sit down with a female friend and get a woman who says, oh yeah, I want to date a guy who's rich. It's like, it doesn't hurt, it certainly doesn't hurt, and it can be very attractive. And I think the reason that it's attractive is because it confers something else that we're looking at over there, which is status. Money confers status in a lot of circles, and if you're in a circle where money equals status, that will always be sexually attracted to a woman. If you're in an environment where athletic ability equals status, like a bunch of chicks who are into sports, then your athletic ability will confer status more than money will. So, but these are very powerful attractions. Anybody that says that they're not is insane. Looks in particular is probably the number one, because let's face it, in terms of first impression, it's really hard to beat being incredibly handsome. But as you may know from your experience hanging out as a bunch of men, looking at women have very different taste. And I have been excruciatingly aware, and you may have had the same experience, that there are some women that think I'm extremely handsome, and some women that really just don't. They just really don't. And I think that men who have a more universally handsome face have an enormous advantage with women, and it would be silly to pretend they didn't. And personality, of course. If you're super funny, extremely extroverted, very comfortable in crowds, yes, that's attractive to women. You've got an advantage. But there are things that are more attractive, and confidence is kind of the big one that we all hear about. Confidence is kind of the one that everybody will tell you is the biggest attractive thing to women. I think it's up there. It's certainly one of the most attractive things to women. When I probed women on different ideas, there was actually something that beat it out, but confidence is the one that most women will reflexively say that a guy who's got that self-confidence, that self-esteem, that swagger, that sense of, I'm the shit, is kind of a huge attractor. Now, you may have drawn the conclusion, as I did, that looks, money, status, and personality can give you a lot of confidence. So, that's not weird, really. That's not weird. It's like a really handsome guy who grew up handsome, who was kind of all the girls in 4th grade thought that he was so cute, probably developed a sense of confidence. And that could really, be a mutually supporting thing. Likewise, if you have a lot of money, it might give you confidence, but it might not. I know an awful lot of men with money who just completely lack personality or social confidence, but it could give you quite a bit of confidence. And by the way, often in reverse, confidence can really help you make a lot of money. The other thing about confidence that I think is really important to mention before I move on is that it's pretty cool to have it, even if you're not interested in getting chicks with it. Confidence makes your life a lot happier and more successful in a lot of other ways. Compassion and presence are two things that are extremely important to women. Excuse me, particularly on a deeper attraction level. As I said, there's kind of this immediate attraction. This guy's really handsome. But I should also mention there are women that don't like men that are extremely handsome because they're not into pretty boys, and they think that men who are handsome probably have no personality or are douchebags. And I've certainly had a lot of women tell me that their first impression of a guy was bad because he was handsome, and then they found out he was really nice. So all these things can cut both ways. But usually things like looks and personality and confidence lead to superficial attraction. There's kind of this immediate well, maybe I want to get with this guy. But there are other qualities that will sort of seal the deal, without which a lot of women will walk away. Or they might be willing to sleep with you, but they wouldn't really want to date you long term or be with you again, or it may be a deal breaker. And compassion and presence are big ones. Compassion, really being that quality of being able to relate to other people's feelings, being emotionally sensitive to other people, and kind of understanding what they're about. I would say that compassion in this context is equivalent to emotional intelligence. It's the capacity to really kind of get where other people are coming from. And if you can't do that, then you might be slotted into the douche I'd like to fuck category, but maybe not. A lot of women are not interested in those guys, and obviously some are. And presence is literally the ability to be present, which for a lot of our video gaming generation is difficult. But it's particularly difficult to have presence with a beautiful woman, because a lot of times instead of being present with her, instead of really being alive and in relation with her, you're busy kind of going through your head of, God, I don't want to look like an idiot, or she's so hot, maybe she's not going to like me. And when you're in the chatter in your brain, that's the opposite of presence. Authenticity and passion, these are really much, much bigger than the ones before. These are the super attractive qualities. Authenticity is something I'm going to talk about a lot more, but this is the very basis of authentic attraction. When a woman sees a man being authentic, what it registers for her is that he has freedom. He's free to act like himself. He's not constrained. He's not self-constrained. He's free to actually just be himself and not worry so much about what other people think. And passion is a form of authentic confidence. There's authenticity in it because it's something that is true for you, and it takes enormous confidence in order to show that you really, really dig something. It's really taking a stand for something, to really be passionate about something, particularly passionate about sex, obviously. But passion is that number one thing that I was alluding to earlier in my enormous surveys of women. Women consistently, like by 90%, rate passion as more attractive in terms of, sexual attraction, not just friend attraction. Passion more attractive than confidence. So that's a biggie. We're going to dig into all of these, obviously. And then the last one I want to put down there is masculine sexual ease. This, really what I'm talking about here is being comfortable being a boy, being comfortable with your penis, being comfortable being a man. And this is something that a lot of men struggle with. We have a lot of shame and a lot of other stuff, and we feel like our sexual desire might be bad or wrong, or that it might not be acceptable, or she might be weirded out by it. We try and hide it. We were raised to try and hide it. It's illegal to not hide it in a lot of circumstances, right? So, but being at ease with your masculinity and your sexuality is intensely attractive. Obviously it's interchangeable with confidence in some way. You're confident about your sexuality, right? It's interchangeable with authenticity in some ways, because you're being authentic about the fact that you have sexual desire. You're not trying to hide it. And it's also analogous to passion, obviously, in a lot of ways, because sexual passion is something that most men are not particularly easeful around. So there is one other thing, though, that kind of makes this a little different, and why I mention it separately, which is a lot of men are confident about everything but that. And if you've ever had a woman really intensely want to be your best friend and think you're the coolest guy she's ever met, but she doesn't want to have sex with you, this is probably the reason. This is probably the reason. She's not viewing you as a man because you're not showing up in your masculine. So that's kind of a final point that's a really important one in terms of attracting women in a sexual way. So I made a couple little pictures here just to kind of illustrate this. Some people are more illustrative learners. Looks, status, and money can give you confidence. Confidence, of course, can also give you status and money, maybe not looks, right? But certainly status and money can flow from confidence. A confident guy is almost always the high status guy in the room, and the more confidence you have, the more likely you are to have status, and the more likely you are to be able to have money. People are more likely to like you, they're more likely to be your friend, they're more likely to hire you, and you're more likely to be successful if you have confidence. And of course, all these things then flow back. The more money and status you get, the more it builds your confidence. So this is a self-perpetuating good thing. And all these things are kind of instant superficial attraction. And I don't mean superficial in a pejorative way. I don't mean superficial as bad attraction. Superficial attraction is great, but it doesn't go very deep, right? It's the kind of thing that if a woman meets a guy who's got looks, money, status, confidence, like her first thing is, woof, I'm wet. Let me meet this guy. I want to say hello to him. I'm going to blush if he flirts with me. There's this kind of immediate superficial attraction. But then if he has a lot of other qualities that she doesn't like, she may dismiss him, or she may not. But certainly in terms of deep attraction, attraction to you on many levels, like I want to be your girlfriend, I want to have your babies, these would not do it. Like looks, status, money, confidence will never lead to deep attraction, but it may open the door for deep attraction. It's certainly good shit, right? It's good stuff. The theory of pickup, this is like where all the pickup artists are at. This is kind of where all this stuff comes from. The theory of pickup as kind of a science, as a thing that you can figure out, as a thing where you can decode women's attraction mechanisms. has to do with creating the illusion of status, right? You can't create the illusion of handsome, right? You can't create the illusion of money. You have money or you don't have money. I can wear a fake Swiss watch or something like that, right? You can fake Rolex. But for the most part, what you're doing is you're displaying status, which generates, kind of immediate superficial attraction. And then the next thing would be having a confident veneer. This confident veneer implies to a woman that you have status. So you decode, you learn the things that give you a confident veneer, like, body language cues and, speaking loudly or speaking softly so people have to listen, or boldly walking up to a woman, making strong eye contact. There are all these things that you can do to fake confidence, to create a confident veneer. You're not really confident. You don't have to be. You can put on this veneer, and she'll think, wow, that guy's confident. He must have high status. And so in conversation with her, as you're sitting there talking to her in the middle of your pickup, she confers status on you. She's like, wow, this guy must be high status. And that kind of reinforces your confident veneer. Now, whatever that fake thing was that you're doing is starting to feel really good, and you feel good at it. And it can even create, of course, real confidence. More qualities that attract women: authenticity and passion require confidence and courage. It takes a lot of courage to be authentic. These are all, again, very attractive qualities. It takes confidence and courage to have authenticity and passion, and authenticity and passion lead to more confidence and courage as you create this discovery, as all men discover, when you behave when you hold yourself to authenticity, when you have the courage to withstand the social pressure of not being inauthentic, when you have the courage to be authentic, you are heavily rewarded for that with attraction by all people. Men admire it, women want to fuck it. So you get a lot of reward for that. That increases your confidence, and that confidence increases your courage, which allows you to have more authenticity and passion. This, of course, leads to deep attraction. This is like the no fake it stuff, right? Somebody who displays authenticity and passion is somebody who can also generate superficial attraction. It's certainly superficially attractive as well, but when a woman discovers that a man has authenticity, she starts thinking about him in terms of the long game as well. And if a woman meets you and she has superficial attraction, she gives you her phone number, you call up her phone, she's not really sure yet because all she has is superficial attraction. So she goes out on a date with you, and then she discovers authenticity, or she had authenticity. If she had authenticity to begin with, she might have gone home with you that night. See, but once she gets that hit, it's kind of a go-ahead to sleep with you. And that, particularly, of course, for women with high self-esteem and high standards who feel that they deserve the best. They feel like they deserve a man who's the real deal. Authenticity and confidence also, again, relate directly to your ability to be at ease with your masculine sexuality. When you have masculinity is what you are. It's wired into you at this deep animal level. So to the degree that you hide it, you're not being authentic. You're not being authentic to the degree that you hide it, but to the degree that you're comfortable with your sexuality, your sexual desire, your masculinity, and you have ease around it, that is extremely confident, it's authentic, and the more you do it, the more good credit you get for it, because again, it leads to deep sexual attraction. This is what women really want on a deep level, and they so rarely get. This guy's a unicorn for most women. So let's break these things down and talk about how you can get them. I think that nothing I've said so far has been over the top alarming to you. I think you know most of this stuff. But let's get into this a little bit. What is confidence? This is the definition that I came up with. I looked it up in a couple of places, and I synthesized this piece for our purposes. It's the belief in one's capability to succeed, and the belief in one's general capabilities. Like you feel, I'm capable, and the belief in one's correctness, as in I'm not wrong, I'm not bad. It's okay to be me. I'm correct to be me. So it's the deep belief in one's capability to succeed, belief in your general capabilities, and belief in your correctness. Now, there's this thing called internal validation versus external validation. Again, it's really easy to be confident if you're extremely handsome because you're getting a lot of external validation. And if you're in a big business mastermind seminar and there's 100 people there who want to learn how to run a great business, and you're one of the speakers because you made $100 million last year, that's a lot of external validation. It's gonna be easy for you to be confident in that environment. But if I took you and I put you into an MMA, mixed martial arts training camp, you may or may not remain confident in that situation. And again, if I took you and put you in a room with a bunch of models who are drinking cosmopolitans because they just got out of a shoot, you might be intimidated there, right? So confidence could be dependent on environment, but some people are internally validated, which means it doesn't really matter what other people's feedback is. They still keep that belief in their capability to succeed. They still keep that belief in their correctness, even if they're not getting external validation. Now, it's been my discovery, having known a lot of really powerfully internally validated men, that they were also very externally validated. And I think it's a lot easier to be internally validated after you've gotten a lot of external validation in a lot of other situations. If you were the most popular guy in high school, it's easier to be internally validated when you get to college. If you're the most popular guy in college, easier to be internally validated when you get out into the workforce, because you've had a lot of external validation to create that for you. But it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement. Internal validation equals that neither success nor the approval of others is necessary for self-approval. You approve of yourself either way. And I think if you look at that, you can clearly see external validation is not required. It sure helps. It sure helps. But it's really important that you understand that it is not required, that you could be internally validated and be completely self-confident without success or the approval of others. It's hard. It takes something. Again, because the environment profoundly affects who we are. I mentioned in one of the newsletters that I sent this week about this webinar, the personality is something that's dynamic. It is not like this thing that you are. There's not like you have this one personality and that's who I am. And in fact, if you meditate on who am I, you'll get very upset and confused very quickly, because you won't be able to pin it down. You're not one person. And who the real you is, real in quotes, doesn't exist. There is no real you in there to find. Who you are is like a bunch of your traits mixed with your energy level and what you ate and how much sleep you had and all the other environmental factors, and most importantly, the environmental factors being safety and danger and the people you're talking to. So in this situation, the environment we're really talking about in terms of meeting women is the woman, right? It's that woman that you think is attractive that you would like to make into your girlfriend. She's your environment. So your personality with her is an emergent property. It's a dynamic thing that is happening between the two of you. So if she's giving you external validation, it's going to be very, very different than if she does not. If she does not give you approval, it's going to be very difficult to maintain your internal validation. But it's not required. I just really want you to see that these aren't requirements, but it certainly does affect things. Now, my friend Evan Pagan, also known as David D'Angelo, and his friend Dean Jackson, a very famous marketer, were thinking about successful people one day, and they came up with this idea of self-appointment. They realized that all of the very, very successful people in the world, in any endeavor, not just money success, but in any endeavor, had to appoint themselves to that role. There was nobody who said, okay, you're going to be successful. It wasn't their mom, it wasn't their boss. This thing of creating something out of nothing, of creating that personality that leads to success, is a decision. It's a decision to appoint yourself as that person, and that's what internal validation is all about. Excuse me. There's literally not enough water on the planet for me to do this. The decision of self-appointment is that thing that leads to true internal validation. External validation helps, environment helps, but there's a possibility of simply deciding that you believe in your capability to succeed, your general capabilities, and your correctness, regardless of the approval of others or actual external success. And it is, literally the most powerful truth in the universe. What confidence gives you, the external symptom, the thing that women look at and go, that guy is confident, is freedom of self-expression. It's this freedom to actually be yourself and to not try and it's exactly the opposite. In other words, this attractive quality, this freedom of self-expression, is the exact opposite of trying to learn a good pickup line. Learning a big pickup line, a great pickup line, learning how to do this veneer of confidence is the exact opposite of freedom of self-expression. And freedom of self-expression feels like, oh crap, I could be rejected because it's very vulnerable. And to be vulnerable, to actually allow yourself to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there, to say what's true for you, requires enormous courage, because if you're rejected, it's very different than if your veneer was rejected. It's very different, right? So here's my proposal. My proposal that I back up with years and years and years of observation. This is not, I can't prove this to you, but by my observation, years and years professionally doing this, you already have every attribute to be exceptionally sexually attractive to many women. And I really obsessed over that word many, because nobody's attractive to all women, right? I mean, some women are just really like turned off by money, and some women are really turned off by handsome guys. Oh, he's pretty, you know what I mean? There's no way to be attracted to all women, and some women, of course, are really mentally damaged and have such low self-esteem that being with somebody who's authentic is extremely threatening to them. So there's really no quality that's going to allow you to be attractive to all women. But when I say many, I mean more than enough. I mean so many women that you would drool over, that you would just, your tongue would be hanging out because she's so beautiful. If you took like 100 of like the women that you thought were just the hottest in the world, a good many of them would be interested in you. So you already have those attributes, but you are so badly mistaken about what those things are about you that are attractive. You are so clueless about what is actually attractive in your own personality and identity that what you end up doing is actively stifling those attractive qualities and putting forward other unnatural, inauthentic, and even disauthentic qualities that women find unattractive. So, the classic example of this is a lot of men try and like do the whole macho thing. And macho kind of impresses other men. It really can. Like if you're just a a cold hard killer, like a lot of men are like, whoa, that's pretty tough. He's a bad guy. But women don't dig that at all. Very recently, Jeffrey Miller put a post up on Facebook. If you don't know who Jeffrey Miller is, he wrote The Mating Mind. He's one of the guys that a lot of the pickup artists quote because he started this whole thing around evolutionary psychology, those pieces of our psychology that were given to us by sexual evolution. And he put up a little video of a guy doing these like amazing athletic things. He was like doing push-ups with his feet on the ground. I don't know if you've seen these things that have been floating around Facebook and stuff. These are these guys that just do amazing shit. They're so strong. And this guy's got this unbelievable body, just like a superhero, rippling muscle. And he posted this little video, and under it he said, question to all of my female friends, is this all other things being equal, is this sexually attractive to you? Like all other things being equal, he's a decent guy. Is this a guy that can do this sexually attractive? And about 15 or 20 women chimed in, and only 2 of them said, yeah, that's hot. And most of the others said, I don't give a shit. Quite a few of them said, I think anybody that spent that much time working on his body probably, has some lack of confidence. Like my first thought if I saw a guy like that would be, ew, I'm probably not going to be attracted to him. And a lot of women, said that it actively wasn't attractive, and a lot of women were neutral about it. So, but all men think, whoa, that guy's a badass. But we have no idea about what it is about ourselves that's actually attractive. We are clueless. And what we do is, because we think that we're unacceptable, because we don't believe that we have attractive qualities, is we put forth unnatural, inauthentic, disauthentic qualities. We put on some kind of an act that we think is the reason that women will like us, and we get rejected, and we think, fuck, I really got to work on my stuff that I'm putting out there and make it even more like what it is I'm doing that women don't like in the first place. It's a real mind fuck, guys, and this is what most men who aren't enjoying success with women are doing. Women love men who are free. Women love men who are free, who have freedom of self-expression, who are just super comfortable and out there being themselves. Women love men who are free, even when they have like what we think is kind of a queer identity, even when they're just like, what, like Pee Wee Herman, you know, but like guys who are really themselves, women just dig that. They vampire on that freedom. They love that authenticity. And we, ironically, spend enormous energy putting ourselves into cages. Very, very odd. We think that there are very specific behaviors that we need to show in order to be attractive. In other words, we feel like we have to act a certain cool way, and that's a cage. That's the opposite of freedom. Here's how to become self-confident. This will work for you. This is how you get to become self-confident and internally validated. First, this is a practice that will change every fucking thing in your life. Everything in your life. It's a practice. It's not like you do it one day and you're done. It's like a lifetime practice. And it yields results immediately and exponentially over the long term. And that is to practice alert, non-judgmental attention on your internal dialogue. So you're saying shit to yourself all the time, and what I'm saying is notice what it is you're saying. Notice what your brain is manufacturing. And this is a very interesting practice. It's not just, of course, you're always listening to what you're saying, right? You're always kind of in a conversation with yourself, and you're listening. But what I want you to do is pay some attention to it, to notice what kinds of things you're saying, to evaluate what this voice is all about. And I'd like you to be non-judgmental about it. I'd like you to really look at some of the things you're saying. If you're like every other human that ever lived, you're going to be appalled by how much of it is negative. And how much of that negative stuff has no basis in reality. It's not all negative, obviously, but an enormous amount of it is kind of weird. And most of us don't realize we're doing it. We listen to this voice in our head. We think it's us. Landmark Forum, they have this thing where they say, that voice in your head, you think it's you because it sounds just like you. But the voice in your head isn't you. It's this mechanism that was developed for survival that models potential bad outcomes so that you don't do them. That's mostly what it does. So listen to it non-judgmentally and try and figure out what the hell it's saying. This is once you're on to what's going on there, you have a real opportunity to understand how it undermines your confidence and how to fix that. As you begin to notice, practice reframes and forgiveness. So these are two things you have to practice, and you can't skip one. One of them is reframing. So, reframing means, you walk up to a woman and you say hi, and she's like, oh, sorry, I'm in a hurry, I can't talk. And you start saying to yourself, oh, stupid, I should have used some line that would have attracted her, or maybe I could have done that, but I did this, and then listen to that, practice some attention, and then reframe it. Like, well, actually, maybe she really was off somewhere, and actually, she did look kind of sorry that she was off somewhere. Like, I think she actually was regretful, and she's probably kicking herself right now that she didn't get to stick around and talk to me. There's a lot of ways to reframe these things that are going on, but look for the positive reframe. Practice positively reframing it. See if it's rational. Like a lot of times what happens is your internal dialogue says some shit, and it seems real until you non-judgmentally sort of evaluate it and go, well, is that any more real than the opposite? Is that more real than the positive reframe? Usually, as in almost 100% of the time, it's not real at all. It's not based on anything. So look at the reframe, and then the forgiveness piece means don't beat yourself up for constantly doing the negative thing. That's actually the normal state of being a human. So it's important not beat yourself up for it. This non-judgmental and forgiveness thing, this is really the sauce. It's really understanding this negative dialogue. And by the way, the more you get into this, the more compassion you're going to have when you're talking to a woman, because she's got the same thing going on. She's got all that same negative shit going on in her head. And it really turns you into a very wise and trustable man when you understand this about yourself and other humans. Now, as long as we're noticing ourselves, notice and practice freedom of self-expression and vulnerability. So this is a separate thing, right? This is now you've started by just simply noticing and giving attention to your internal dialogue. Then what I want you to do is notice how often you're not being yourself, how often you're not free in your self-expression, how often you're not just saying whatever the fuck is on your mind, just telling the truth. We tend to reflexively lie about almost everything. Oh, tell him I'm not home right now, or just say I'm in the bathroom. Just like, no, I don't want to talk to him right now is actually freedom of self-expression, right? But we reflexively hide the truth. And I think that as you begin to really practice, really notice and practice your ability to be unstifled, as my friend Owen says, to be really free in your self-expression, this is a directly super sexually attractive quality. So we're kind of taking 3 steps to get there. But what's glorious about it, and the reason that it builds confidence, is because it's incredibly sexually attractive. So the more freedom and self-expression you have, the more reward you get for it, and it very rapidly leads to more confident behavior. And notice when you're not being free. Notice when your self-expression is stifled, and this means being vulnerable. Like, telling the truth often is a very vulnerable thing to do. Being real is extremely vulnerable, and you're afraid people are going to judge you. It takes courage. The more you do it, the more courage you're going to have to do it more. It's a muscle. You're going to build it, and you're going to get more and more confidence because you're going to get positive feedback from it. And there's this idea of top truth that my friend Nathan Otto talks about. In fact, Nathan taught me everything on here, this non-judgmental attention on your internal dialogue, reframes and forgives. This is all from my mentor, Nathan. He has this idea called top truth, and top truth is basically as vulnerable as you can get, the closest thing to your freedom of self-expression, which is not always all the way there. So, for example, you might be thinking as you're sitting with your girlfriend that you want to fuck her sister. That's a very difficult thing to have freedom of self-expression around, right? You're probably going to get punished for that. But your top truth might be, your sister's quite attractive. Like, that might be your top truth. That's like the closest to the bone you can go, where like you don't feel like you'd have to light yourself on fire. And as you walk up to women and who you're attracted to, you may notice that you're putting on a lot of act, but you may also notice that there's a certain freedom of expression that you'd really like to put out there, that there's something very real for you, something like really real for you, and it would be very, very vulnerable for you to put that out there. And I'm asking you to dig to the deepest level you can, and that's your top truth. That's the best you can get. It's not the bottom truth. It's not the root truth. It's just the deepest one you can get to. And what happens is, what's great about this game is usually you get positive feedback for your top truth, and it allows you to go a layer deeper and to deal a card from a little lower in the deck. And it's a practice. Set and keep daily intentions. This is a huge one for 2 reasons. The first reason is what I want you to do is set intentions around these 3 exercises. Maybe Monday, you'll set a little alarm on your watch or in your computer calendar to practice alert non-judgmental attention of your internal dialogue. So every time the little thing rings, you're like, what am I thinking right now? What is it that I've been saying to myself? What is this bullshit? And then you get a chance to, reframe, forgiveness, all that. Maybe do that, Monday. Maybe do that Tuesday as well. But set it. Set the intention. In other words, this requires something of you. You're going to actually have to do this. If you don't do it, you will not get the result. I mean, you have to do it. There's one thing is to get that like epiphany of, oh shit, what Alex is saying is true. It's a very different epiphany to then experience it. You have to give yourself the experience in order to actually learn it, in order to actually make it a part of you. So it's really important that you set and keep these daily intentions. And then if you've done this a few days, then begin to notice and practice freedom of self-expression and vulnerability using top truth. Actively practice freedom of self-expression. Go out there and do it. Maybe set an hour aside where you're going to go do that, or if you're going out with your friends to a bar or something, go out and do that. Or just today at work, I'm going to really challenge myself to be free in my self-expression, to be more vulnerable at this dinner party or whatever that is. So set and keep these as daily intentions. The second reason that it's important is because it's actually a vehicle towards self-esteem. Nathaniel Branden, who is the father of self-esteem, which is to say he invented the term self-esteem. Self-esteem as an idea, I guess, may have always existed. That person who has high esteem for himself may have existed. But the first guy who put those two words next to each other and said, this is a psychological quality, was a psychiatrist named Nathaniel Branden. He invented self-esteem. And he invented it, by the way, like 80 years ago. He's now like 100. I mean, he's in his 90s, a very, very old guy. And he's still publishing papers on psychology and specifically on self-esteem. And I met him and I talked to him about self-esteem. And one of the most powerful things that builds self-esteem is when you set and keep daily intentions. Not these. Any daily intention, because somebody with self-esteem is somebody who is in charge of their own destiny. It's somebody who believes that they have what it takes to get by in the world. That's a quote from Nathaniel Branden. It's somebody who has what it takes. They believe they have what it takes to get by in the world. Like whatever situation they're going to be in, they're going to be okay. They're going to come out okay. They have what it takes to be okay. And one of the ways that this manifests is in being intentional about your life rather than just kind of, being up ship's creek without a paddle. It's, being up there with a paddle, right? It's being able to actually make headway in your own life. Setting, keeping daily intentions proves that to yourself and generates massive self-esteem. So Nathaniel Branden also, his number one exercise, and like I said, he's been researching this with graduate students for his entire career. I'm talking, like a 50, 60-year career now. He's been dealing with self-esteem. And this was his number one thing for building self-esteem. It was to keep a morning journal. And the morning journal is also known as the before you pee journal. It's like you wake up, you're still groggy, you take your journal and a pen. I actually did this for about a year after he told me this. You take your journal and pen and you just begin writing 10 or 15 things that begin with, who would I become if I was just 5% more something? He recommended intentional. Who would I be if I was just 5% more intentional in my life? Answer it 10 times. Who would I be if I was just 5% more intentional in my life? Who could I become? What would happen? Answer the question 10, 15, 20 times. Scribble. What in this half awake, half asleep state, it will remarkably change your life. Remarkably change your life. I recommend specifically if your goal is to, be socially better with getting women, is to write, who would I become if I was just 5% more free? Who would I be if I was just 5% more free? Or who would I be if I was just 5% more vulnerable in my interactions? Who would I be if I was just 5% more authentic? Is a fucking good one. But I'll tell you, you could use any one of these. You could use any one of these and it will build your confidence and it will directly build and change the way you react with women. And it's another thing that you get to set and keep as a daily intention. So it really has this double powerful effect. And then finally, the hardest one and the easiest one, the fastest one and the most terrifying one is make the decision of self-appointment. Again, this was Evan and Dean's thing. It's like to actually decide I'm going to be confident. I don't give a fuck. I don't care what other people say. I'm internally validated. I'm good with me. I'm good with me. On some deep level that you're capable of it. Like we all kind of get that. Like I could be totally free and confident right now. I could be totally free in my self-expression. Like I could literally just say I don't give a fuck and just be me. You kind of know you could do it, and you also kind of know that you won't, right? And you know you won't because like it would be scary. It would be very scary. Well, what I suggest, and someday I may teach an entire webinar around just this point, what I suggest is that if you were to overcome that fear and just do it, in an instant, in a moment, you would drop your story, you would drop your bullshit, and you would realize your real power. It's the most remarkable experience a human can have. Completely transformative. Play with it. Play with it. Play with this idea. Journal about it. It's an enormously powerful idea to play with, this idea of self-appointment. Compassion presence, highly attractive. Let's talk about why and how to do it. It is the antidote to feeling nervous around attractive women. When we feel nervous around attractive women, that was that question that I asked at the beginning, why is that when you're with a woman who's very attractive, it's, it's not easy to just kind of be yourself. All of a sudden you start acting like kind of an idiot. What is that nervousness that sort of closes us down and makes us like search for words and say dumb things? Well, the antidote to that nervous feeling is compassion and presence. It's the ability to just, instead of being so caught up in like, oh, fuck, what should I say? And what am I going to do? And does she think I'm hot, or does she like me? Does she not like me? To snip off that dialogue and instead become absorbed in trying to understand who she is and in being present to what's really happening. So here's practicing presence. Presence is like a really, really interesting thing to practice. Again, yields great results in your whole life. The most obvious way to practice is meditation. Meditation is the practice of trying to be present, and as anybody can tell you who's ever tried to meditate, it's hard. It's like, it's work. Meditation isn't relaxing. Meditation is like golf. It's fucking frustrating. It's really hard to stay present. You start by just, being really present to your breath, the sensations in your body, the feelings on your skin. And 4 seconds later, you realize that you're thinking about that conversation you had with your boss earlier, or, just some weird shit that you're on that's not present, but just some manufacture of your inner voice. It's really hard to maintain presence. It's really hard. And I recommend getting a book or taking a course in meditation, or, just doing it, frankly, because it's like 1% theory and 99% practice. It's really just about the practice. Watch a YouTube video. I don't know. And then just practice. Meditation has enormous benefits. It lowers stress, improves health, lowers anxiety levels, and it delays onset of Alzheimer's. They say it makes you smarter. It improves focus. There's just a lot of really good reasons to meditate. And I think that you can use it to be much more attractive to women, because what I want you to do is first kind of learn what it is to be present, and then be present in conversation. Like, take it out into the real world. Be present with a person you're with. And you can start by being present, just hanging out with a friend. You'll be amazed at how often when your friends are saying something, you're managing some smart or funny comment that you could make next instead of actually being present to what they're saying. And when you're with a beautiful woman, this is like on fucking crazy overdrive. So practice with a friend, and then, try it with, a woman on a date. Try it with a woman who you just met or you just walked up to. Try saying hi and then being like unbelievably present to like what's going on with her, like her facial expression and her respiration, the words she's saying, her emotional state. What is she conveying on every level? Like, what if you were really present? If you're really like that analytical and that into it, you'll find that it's very difficult to attend to your own anxiety. Practicing compassion might look like authentic curiosity. There you are talking to this woman. What if you were really curious about who the fuck she was? Maybe you're not so sure that you like her, or maybe you're really curious about what being a beautiful woman her whole life did to her. Like, maybe it made her super weird. Maybe it made her super confident. Maybe you're just really curious to find out like what's really going on there. But the piece of this that's challenging is not being curious, because you can kind of feign curious. You can be like, so what do you do? What was it like for you growing up? What's your favorite kind of shoe? Like you could fake curiosity. It's not very attractive. It's annoying. But authentic curiosity is different. Like, what actually provokes you about her? And if you feel that you're not authentically curious about her in any way, then I suggest you just have no compassion. You don't really like people very much. And that's normal. I wouldn't beat myself up over that. That's normal. But it's something to practice, something to consider. Compassion is that ability to, really get into the human experience of somebody else. Practicing compassion involves non-judgment. It involves like liking people. If somebody agrees with you, you don't have to have any compassion there. You just get them. That's easy. There's no practice involved in that kind of compassion. They like the same sports team as you. They like the same political party as you do. They're pretty cool, But people who are different from you, like maybe they have a different political affiliation, or, they're a beautiful woman, they're a little harder for you to get behind. Like, to really like, what are they really like? They're a little more difficult to be authentically curious about and to be non-judgmental about, to really just like see who they are and accept it for what it is, and not like your weird opinion about it. Like, drop your fucking opinion about it and just like get into the examination of what is, of what's true. And in this process, learn to like humans. Learn to like humans. Like, just be cool with humans being humans. You know, humans all lie. All humans are bitchy once in a while. All humans are anxious and insecure once in a while. All humans are really fucking mean once in a while, and all humans are really valiant and courageous once in a while. You know, it's amazing how we're all this way, and compassion allows you to kind of see, like, right, of course, you know, I'm no different, and they're just struggling like I am. Like, when you get to, if you're that guy who doesn't have judgment, who actually likes humans, it's such an easy button for fast sex. It is such an easy button for fast sex. I told you that story about that girl that I knew when I was, like, 19, who was getting drunk at the party because she was kind of into this guy. She wanted to have sex with him, but, she felt like, I have to be drunk to do it so that I can say, oh, I was really drunk. That was stupid of me, That's because she predicted that he'd be judgmental and didn't really like her being a human. Okay, that's why. And or maybe she wasn't so comfortable with her own humanity and, being horny and feeling like she shouldn't be horny and this kind of thing, right? People who are really non-judgmental and really just dig humans, even though they're incredibly human and flawed, women can sniff that out, and you're a target for one-night stands. There's a lot in any given bar and any given night. There's a dozen women who are really hoping to go home with somebody. You become that guy if you can get this. Self-compassion, by the way, is one of the most beautiful things to cultivate. Is the recognition that you're a human, and to stop judging yourself so much, to stop being so fucking self-critical all the time. And I know you are, because you're a human. I know you're human. There might be some, I don't know, Google bots listening in, but if you're a human, you have a ridiculous self-critical voice. Just ease back, just ease back, Beavis. Have some self-compassion. You're a human. You're always going to be messed up. You're a human. It's okay. Learning that self-compassion leads to self-confidence, because you're okay with not being perfect all the time, right? It leads to self-confidence. And that same self-confidence and that same self-compassion makes it much, much easier to be compassionate for her, and to be authentic with her, and to be present with her. And it leads to very, very deep comfort and trust, which leads to easy button for sex. Right? She just gets that you're a guy who doesn't take it all that seriously, and that you're cool with yourself, and you're cool with her, and you're going to be cool with her even if she does something really weird. Like, you're just not caught up in that little circle, and it leads to deep comfort and trust. People trust men who can do that. Men trust men that can do that too, by the way. Authenticity, one of my faves. Authenticity is really sexually attractive. It is the clearest marker of moral courage, of emotional courage. Vulnerability reads as courage. The ability to, like, really be honest about, like, what you're insecure about, what your feelings are. Like, it's not super easy for a lot of men to be vulnerable about their emotions, to, like, just tell the truth, put themselves out there. It reads as courage, and it's highly, highly sexually attractive. It's also highly masculine, because a lot of times your vulnerability and your authenticity really is around your sexuality, of which you are probably not 100% comfortable. There's probably things about it that, like, we generally think some of our sexual desires are bad and wrong and weird, and if people heard about it, they wouldn't like us anymore. And your ability to be vulnerable about that and truthful about that and authentic about that is highly masculine and highly sexual. And perhaps more importantly, to the task at hand of getting chicks, it's an invitation and permission. If you can be authentic with her, if you can really just have the courage to really be vulnerable with her and really be authentic with her, it's an invitation for her to be authentic and vulnerable with you. It's permission for her to be authentic and vulnerable with you, and she's starving. She's starving to be authentic and vulnerable because she doesn't get to. She is stuck in the same fucking world that you're stuck in, the same world with the same rules, where she feels every single day that she's not good enough and that she has to put on some kind of an act. She also suffers from this inability to have freedom of self-expression. And you get to give her this invitation, this permission to really be okay with herself and to have freedom of self-expression, vulnerability, and authenticity when you go first. It's huge, monstrously attractive, and of course, like I said, this is deep attraction. This is the kind of thing that makes her draw conclusions about you, not just like, well, maybe I like him. No, she likes you if you can do this. Again, we talked about personality is kind of this emergent property of the system of the two of you interacting, and when you're authentic and vulnerable, it gives her permission to be her best self. She can actually show up, all her little personality, she gets to show up as her best self. She can feel good about who it is she's being. So here's an exercise to get there. Like I recently taught a big thing on authenticity. I talked for like an hour and a half about authenticity at Christian Hudson's Girlfriend Activation System seminar, and brought the house down. The guys fucking loved it. But the whole time I talked, I didn't give really one powerful method for learning how to do it, other than just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it, which is, by the way, not bad advice. But this is a great exercise that I came up with recently, which is to notice, again, to give some attention to the difference between what's true for you, your self-truth, and trying to say what's right. And the shortcut to this is to do it to other people first. This is kind of the opposite, by the way, of being non-judgmental. And so it's not the most attractive thing you can do to somebody. But I recommend that when you're in some social setting, at a dinner party or hanging out with some friends, or in the office, or just hanging out with your buddies, watch for the difference between when they're trying to say, they're trying to give the right answer versus like actually taking the moment, the time, and the intention to find out what's true. And if you really want to be sure and provoke it, ask a tough question. Ask a tough question. So if you say to a guy, what do you think is a really sexually attractive quality to women? Or what do you find a sexually attractive quality in women? And they say something like, a sexually attractive quality in a woman is that she's self-confident and funny. That's a guy who's trying to say what was right. That's the right answer. We all kind of know that's the right answer. You know what I mean? Oh, she makes me laugh. Ask a girl, what do you think is attractive in a guy? And she says, oh, he's a guy that makes me laugh. She's giving you the right answer. Everyone knows that's the right answer. And she wants to be right. She wants you to see her as right. She didn't even take a second to actually examine for herself what was true. And noticing that difference will expose in your own mind when you're doing the one and when you're doing the other. When you're out with the guys and some guy's like, yeah, I'd love to fuck that girl up the ass. And you're like, yeah, that's right. And you're just kind of like going along with it. Most of the time, you're just doing like the right thing. You're just doing that thing that you're supposed to do so you can get along with everybody. You didn't even stop for a minute to be like, I don't actually want to fuck her up the ass. That's weird and gross. And I'm not even attracted to her. And even if I was, I might want to have vaginal sex with her first, or whatever your truth is. But you didn't even evaluate it. Most men, when they're asked a question, a serious question, never even take a second to evaluate what might be true. They take a second to evaluate what might be the right answer. And we're taught this, by the way, in school. There's a right answer. The teacher asks a question, and and then you raise your hand, and you want to give the right answer. You want to give the answer that the teacher says, oh, good, Alex, you're smart. Come to the front of the class. Everybody else, all you other kids, listen to Alex. He's smart. He had the right answer. We're trained to give the right answer. Really pay attention to this. This will blow your fucking mind. Like I said, if necessary, synthesize it. Ask difficult questions of friends, family. Ask your sister, your dad, it doesn't matter. You'll discover that literally everybody almost is looking for the right answer. They're just coming up with what they believe is the one that would be commonly acceptable to other people, the one that you could stand behind, the gold standard of answers. They're not at all looking for what's personally true for themselves. And that is inauthentic. That is the cage. That's what we all do. And by the way, if you ask somebody and they actually stop and take the time to really articulate something that's real for them, you'll probably discover you have deep, deep admiration for that person. It's probably a mentor, somebody you wish you could be like. That's somebody who's a mentor, somebody who you wish you could be like. Or even in that moment, you just be like, wow, this guy is so cool. And then you'll see it. That's it in real time. That's what it looks like. And then start practicing doing it yourself. Notice yourself. Notice when you're just giving the right answer and when you just don't have the fucking guts to do anything else but try and give the right answer. And when you're actually seeking for what's real for you. That's called the vulnerability that reads as courage, that's highly sexual and masculine, and is an invitation and permission for her to be her best self when you're around. Masculinity and sexual ease, again, it's so obvious that this is going to be attractive to women and so difficult to do, right? It's the clearest indicator the clearest indicator of your masculinity to a woman is your attraction to the feminine. That's really what masculine is. If you have any doubts, I'm probably going to do also a separate webinar. In fact, bigger than a webinar. I think I'm going to do a huge 4-day live event around masculinity. I think this is like the next big subject that men really need me to talk about. It's not macho. It's not courage. It's not, being a tough fighter or a good athlete. I mean, men have all these weird ideas about what masculinity is. For women, masculinity is something completely different. And the most obvious piece of it is attraction to the feminine. That's just it's not the only one, but attraction to the feminine is the most obvious one. That's the one that lets a woman know that you're a man and not just a human. I mean, she knows you're a human, duh, but is she going to think of you in the man category or just the, big, massive, general friends and coworkers category? Well, for her to think of you as a man, attraction to the feminine is going to be a big piece of that. And learning how to be authentic with your sexual desires. Again, there's this gap between the right answer and like what feels real at your depth. It's an active process to know what that is. It's an active process to be free with your sexual desires. And then, and this is important, this is tactical, not strategic, this is important, allow your desire for a beautiful woman to be the frame of the conversation, not the conversation itself. It's like you run out of things to say very quickly when you walk up and you go, "Oh, I want to fuck you." That's a very, very short conversation. And it's, probably not the worst conversational starter on earth. It's far from the best. And it's going to require a lot of social grace for you to, kind of hit the return when she knocks that serve back into your court, right? Maybe more than you are comfortable with right now. But allow it to be the frame of the conversation. Most men won't. They feel like they need to, in pickup terms, an indirect opener versus a direct opener. It's neither of those are particularly right. What's right is to allow it to be the frame. When you approach a beautiful woman, or you're talking to a beautiful woman, you're introduced to a beautiful woman, maybe a woman you already know, allowing it to be the frame, like to allow yourself to feel it, and to kind of, it's obvious you're flirting with her. Allow it to be the frame that your sexual desire is real. It's there. You don't have to talk about it. It's probably better not to talk about it unless you want to talk about it, in which case, fuck yeah, talk about it. But that's not the important bit. The important bit is it's the frame. It's not a terribly interesting conversation because it's very obvious. Like when you are specifically telling a woman, my God, I think you're so incredibly beautiful, it comes across as if you said, I've been thinking really hard about it, and I think war is a bad thing. And it's bad that humans have war. And actually, what's really bad about it is I think there's no fucking solution to it. And when you say something like that, people kind of like their eyes glaze over because you're being Captain Obvious. It's so obvious, right? So let it be obvious without having to like talk about it. Allow your desire to be the frame of the conversation. Now, to do this effectively, you really, and to be authentic with your sexual desires, you have to do whatever it takes to erase shame and get right with your sexual desires. The quote from my friend Brian Franklin, I love this. If you could like tattoo this on the inside of your eyelids, you'd be doing well. That all of your desires are good and they all say something good about you. If you can say that to yourself, all my sexual desires are good. They're good. It's good to have sexual desires. Healthy. It's masculine. It's human. It's beautiful and pleasurable. All of my sexual desires are good. And they say something good about you. Having those, every one of your weird, crazy, offbeat, nutty sexual desires, like the ones you're really ashamed of, they actually say something good about you. And it's worth you exploring what that good thing is, because they do. They do. They come from someplace noble and powerful and intensely alive. Intensely alive. And it could be, when I say do whatever it takes to erase shame and get right with your desire, I mean, do an internet search, read articles. I'll bet there's a bunch of courses out there on erasing shame and getting right with your desire. Go see a psychoanalyst, go sit in the couch and do what you got to do, but get right with this, because it will change everything powerfully. When you're right with it, it's an invitation. It's just like being authentic is an invitation and permission to be authentic. When you're cool with your masculinity, when you're at ease with your sexuality, it's an invitation and permission for her to be authentic, right, and vulnerable with her sexual desires. It's an invitation for all of her kinky, crazy sexuality to be okay. Not only is this sexually attractive, not only do women dream about being with a man like this, not only is this like something that's going to make her blush and shiver and fantasize and masturbate when she thinks about you, but it's also going to yield better sex. Like when you are that guy with her, she'll have an orgasm so quickly and she'll say to you, my God, in the past, I used to rarely come at all during intercourse, and when I did, it would take me like 20 minutes, and it took me like 5 seconds with you. I don't know why. That's why. That's the experience that you'll have over and over again when you get this. And this is real. I'm not making this up. This is not something that's just my experience alone. I've coached, hundreds of couples in this. It yields very, very quick, easy orgasms, and women can sense it. It's immediately seductive and attractive and alluring. And passion. Like I said, this was the one that, the women said was number one. This was the thing that they felt was most attractive from their own perspective. And being passionate requires confidence and freedom. Right? You have to, it's taking what you like and you're putting it out there. It's not internalizing it. It's being big with it, right? And it's what you love. It's confidence and freedom around that thing that you love. And sexual passion, like we all love sex. We all love sex. Her, you, me, right? We all love sex. So being passionate about it instead of being like, yeah, of course I like sex, but being passionate about it is so attractive. But it's really anything you love. If you really love Game of Thrones or comic books or something that like is traditionally like, women don't dig it, that's so wrong. Women dig passion. It doesn't matter what your passion. They dig passion. They see passion in a man and they're like, that is so confident and easeful and beautiful, and like they just get so caught up in that because it's an indicator for them that you're going to be passionate about sex, because everybody loves sex. A lack of passion is the stifling of the self and the stifling of desire. What's good about that, right? Passion is always attractive. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's, comic books. It's always attractive. And sexual passion is an ultimate form of confidence for a couple of reasons. One is you guys have it in common. She may not like comic books. She may respect your passion about comic books, but she may not, be a huge Star Wars fan, but, you're passionate about it. But sex is a passion you're going to have in common. All humans love sex. All humans love sex. So sexual passion is a common passion, but, there's more to it. It's kind of the ultimate form of confidence, because of all things to be confident about, it's the one that most people are ashamed of. Society makes us ashamed of it. Culture makes us ashamed of it. Religion makes us ashamed of it. Everybody's afraid of, kind of ashamed of their sexual desire. So it's sexual passion, not just like rightness with it, but passionate about it, is the ultimate form of confidence. I have a program called Passionate Lover, Passionate Life. That book is a shameless plug. You should buy it. It's insanely good, and it's all about passion. And the best program I ever did. So, anyway, if you're interested in learning more about how to be passionate in your relationship as a lover and in your life, I recommend that program. And finally, what does all this mean? Where does the rubber meet the road? Just kind of tactically, how do you talk to hot chicks? How do you talk to hot chicks? What do you do? What's the do here? So I just watched a video today. Is perfect timing. Owen Cook, who's also Tyler Durden of Real Social Dynamics, put up a video today on his blog today, and it was about how to have effortless conversation with hot women and how to not run out of things to say and this kind of thing. And the first thing he said was, I got some bad news for you. If you can't think of what to say when you're with a woman, it's a trailing indicator. It's not a leading indicator. It's a trailing indicator. It means that like everything else is already not working. You've already fucked everything else up. If you get to the point where you're staying there with a woman, you're like, I don't know what to say. It's a trailing indicator. You fucked the rest up. What are the leading indicators? Everything else I spoke about in this webinar. You're already not being confident. You're already in your head, busy thinking of the right thing to say instead of what's true, not being present with it, right? You're doing all the wrong things, or you wouldn't be worried about it at all, right? It wouldn't even come up. So here's the thing. It's not what you say, it's who you're being. This is not exactly how I would put it, but this is true. It's not what you say, it's who you're being. Like, it literally doesn't matter what you say. You could be, telling her the most interesting story in the world while being anxiety-ridden and desperately wanting her attention and approval, and it will go over very badly. Or you could tell her what you ate for breakfast that morning in excruciating detail, and how you prepared your eggs in every way. But if who you're being is confident and authentic and all those other things, she's going to be very interested just to be hanging out with you. She's just going to want to be with you. That's going to be good. In fact, she can do all the talking. It really doesn't matter that much because it's who you're being. It's who you're being. It's not what you're saying that matters at all. And so this sense of like, oh, I need something cool to say, drop that. Drop that. If you're afraid that you need something to say, just be present. Just be present. In fact, practice being present by not saying anything. Let other people talk. Practice being present by walking up to a conversation and being a silent observer. Being present and acknowledging all the cool shit that other people are saying. Sometimes your deepest contribution to a conversation, as my friend Annie Lala once said, some people, their deepest contribution to a conversation is listening. Practice that. Like, really be present. And you'll discover that it's not that important to just, fill space with chatter. Forget content. Forget content. Forget, like, cool things to say. Forget looking for the right thing to say. It will screw you. And instead, only mind your emotional frame. Your emotional frame is all that matters. Just be in the right state of mind and good shit will come out of your mouth. Don't worry about what you say. Good shit will come out. Even if it's nothing. Like, you can just sit there stupidly, and if you're in the right emotional frame, it's good. And if you're in the right emotional frame, it'll get fun. Presence and compassion, like I just mentioned, that is the right emotional frame, by the way. That's a right emotional frame. Self-amusement. I've never heard it put any better than this. Self-amusement. Again, Owen Cook, Tyler Durden from Real Social Dynamics. The first guy I heard this from. This is a great emotional frame, is self-amusement. Why are you going over to talk to the beautiful girl? To amuse yourself, to have fun, to enjoy the experience of talking to the beautiful girl. Not to get something. It's a totally non-transactional frame. It's totally non-transactional. There's nothing to be gotten. It's possible that the two of you will end up attracted to each other and fucking later. That, of course, is possible, and that would be delightful. But to the degree that you're kind of like really managing that future thing that doesn't exist yet, you're screwed. Then you're not present, right? You're not present. Instead, go for self-amusement. Go for this non-transactional self-amusement. Say shit to her that you think is cool or that you think is funny. Talk about fucking Star Wars. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter, provided you're amusing yourself, and you can then generate this freedom of self-expression. And of course, fearless authenticity. Like, be determined to not say the right thing. Really think about what you say. Be fearlessly authentic. This is like really the shit. So who are you being? Well, like I said, who you're being with her it has something to do with her. Because personality is an emergent property of the system. In this case, the system is you and her. This could be a first date. Could be a third date, hoping for sex. This could be you just met her. This could be somebody just introduced you. This could be you just found out that, the two of you are in the same whatever and comparing notes, and you're like, wow, actually, she's kind of attractive, So who are you being? Well, it's an emergent property of the system, and she's part of that system. So are you. So clean up neediness. Like, catch yourself being needy. Needy is like you need a certain outcome. You need her approval. You need her to be nice to you. You need to not look like an idiot. Like, just notice it. Be compassionate. Forgive yourself. It's normal. And then just let it go. Let it go. Because when you're needy, it provokes defensiveness. It's like, some guy comes up to you, and he noticed that you just drew a couple of $100 out of the ATM, and what you feel from him is like a real neediness for your money. Like he really needs that money. He's homeless, and you can feel that neediness. He's like, hey, can you spare something? What does that trigger in you? Like, you're looking around to make sure like you're not going to get jumped, right? It provokes defensiveness. Neediness is that. Neediness is that. It's that homeless guy that saw you draw money out of the ATM. That's what neediness is. It provokes defensiveness. So clean that up. Clean up anxiety and inadequacy. We talked about that earlier too. Like, it provokes pity and impatience, right? When you're anxious and feeling inadequate, it makes her like, oh, poor guy, maybe I'll talk to him for a while, or God, I gotta fucking get out of here. Those are the two possibilities there, right? Neither one of those are so good. Provokes pity and impatience. Clean up suspicion, paranoia, and mistrust. If you don't like women, get right with that. Like, get that they're humans. Get that they are, yes, flawed characters, and they're a mess, and they have their own anxieties and insecurities, and one of them cheated on you, and you've been dumped, and they're mean, and that one who broke your heart. Just get rid of that shit. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's just us all being humans. Clean up your suspicion, paranoia, and mistrust. Because you know what you get with paranoia, suspicion, and mistrust is paranoia, suspicion, and mistrust. You get a woman who acts like a bitch and who can't be trusted. Commit to non-transactional self-amusement. Commit to it. Like, show up with non-transactional self-amusement when you're with an attractive woman. Why? Because instead of provoking impatience or pity, it provokes fun. Conversations are fun when you're just down for self-amusement. Everybody likes amusement, and if you're minding your own amusement, she'll catch the bug. This is a big one. Expect her greatness. Expect her greatness. Expect her to be just fucking fantastic. Remember that her personality is an emergent property of the system that includes you. And you've probably heard about these studies where teachers are told that the kids in the class are geniuses, and she's got to treat them that way. And then they're told, another teacher is told the same class are all kids with learning disabilities, and of course the kids show up that way. The kids either excel or fall behind based on the teacher's expectation of those kids, because people show up as an emergent property of the system that you're creating. Expect her greatness. See her big. See her beauty. See her grace, her compassion, her ease, her comfort, her femininity. Like, expect it. Expect it of her. It will change the interaction completely. And show up sexually male. Show up sexually male. Let your desire be in the room. If it's not, you may have a very pleasant interaction. You guys may laugh, you may have fun, but you're not going to get her feminine side. When you show up sexually male, you'll get a female. What I mean by that is that she's going to be in her female. She'll be sexually female as you're sexually male. So really figure out how to show up with your desire as part of the frame. And finally, I want to talk about sex, second dates, and marriage. In other words, where does it go from this initial? I'm not a great pickup artist. If I see a beautiful woman in a bar, my odds of walking out with her pretty low. But I've done it. I've done it on a couple of occasions. It's really fun when you get it right. But it's not my area of expertise. Yet, I would have plenty of sex in my life. Even when I'm single, I've got plenty of sex partners. There's plenty of women who are interested in being with me and, getting dates and companions, and women that are interested in being with me long term is second nature for me, because there's a lot of women in the world. It turns out there's just a lot of attractive women out there. There's just tons of them, and you do run into them. They're just kind of part of your life. It's a friend of a friend, and then you show up here, and then you're at Burning Man, and this one and that one. You go to the party, and you talk, oh, really? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, let's share a ride. And then you're in the car with three other people. One of them is a beautiful woman. There's beautiful women everywhere. They're just kind of everywhere. They're just everywhere. And, if every time you see a beautiful woman, you've got like a 1 in 1,000 chance of her being interested in having sex with you, then you could be lonely a lot of the time. But if there's always like a decent chance it's on the table, like most of the time, then you'll discover that like you don't really need to go out to bars and clubs to have a lot of sex or to have a lot of beautiful women in your life. It's just not necessary. However, one of the big problems that a lot of guys have that are super good at pickup, and they get phone numbers and they can, move her to the other bar, she comes home, she makes out with them and all this kind of stuff, is they never get a second date. And frequently they don't get very much sex because a lot of women won't have sex until the second or third or fourth date. Some women will, sure, of course. Plenty won't. And these guys don't get second dates. Why? Because they've only got the superficial attraction part down, not the deep attraction. So here's a couple of good rules. One, always go for sex when you want sex. Why? Because it's authentic. It's vulnerable. It's true. When I say always go for sex, I mean go vulnerably. Don't go for sex like, like some kind of douchebag or be pushy, but like, yeah, let her know that sex is in the room, that your desire is like real and present and you want her, and go for it. Make a move. Make a move. If you don't, then that's inauthentic, and she knows that you're kind of trying to manage her expectations, and it's nauseating. And worse than that, it's no fun. It makes her feel like, oh, what went wrong there? Like, give her the opportunity to say, no, not yet. I don't know you well enough. Women love that. It's part of the game. It's fun. It's part of the whole male-female dance. It's part of being a human. Always go for the sex when you want sex on the first date, and you're 100 times more likely to get a second date, even if she says no, because she knows you're a sexual man. She's excited by that. She's excited to be with you again because she feels sexy when you're around. And make her feel like that she's your unique object of sexual desire. Or just, if you're just horny for every hole, if you're just horny for everything that moves, just sexual in general, that's a lot less interesting for her than when she's the actual object of your sexual desire. That there's something about her in particular that's triggering you and that's beautiful to you, and that you want to just sit and look at her and touch her and be with her. Women want to feel like the object of your sexual desire because that allows them to feel sexy when you're around. Whenever you're around, they feel sexy. Well, they dig that, and it makes them want second dates. It wants them to be with you. It makes them imagine a long-term passionate relationship with you. And by the way, if you're married to her, never stop doing that. Never stop doing that. That's how lasting passion happens. Be the man that gives her permission to be her very best self. Be the man that gives her permission to be her very best self. How? By being non-judgmental, by accepting her, by clapping for her, by applauding her authenticity and her vulnerability and her sexuality. The more you do that, the more that you approve of her vulnerability, like her, being sexually wild with you, gives her permission to be her very best self. She's her favorite self when she's with you. That'll get you second dates and marriages and lasting passion in your marriage. And never ever punish her for being a girl or for her sexuality. Men are so often contemptuous of women doing something feminine. Never ever do that. It's so easy to do and so hard to undo. By the way, women do this to men also all the time. Women constantly punish men for being masculine. They constantly punish men for, wanting to look at the Victoria's Secret catalog or whatever. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Never punish her for being a girl. Never punish her for her sexuality. If she wants to get up and get all dressed up and be beautiful and she wears a short skirt to go out with her friends and not you, don't be jealous of that. She's showing off for the other girls. Don't punish her for her sexuality. Don't ever punish her for being a girl. Or she'll stop being a girl when you're around. That's why, right? And remember that all of this stuff is not a goal. You can't get to the end. There's no finish line here. You will never you're going to get this stuff. Oh, I'm internally validated now. I got lots of pussy. I'm done. This is it's not the way it works at all. There's no, you're not going to get this one day. There's no goal to get. There's no finish line out there. It's nowhere in sight. It doesn't exist. It's not a goal. You have to commit to this as a process. This is the masculine process. This idea of noticing your internal dialogue, of really noticing it, of noticing when other people are trying to give you the right answer instead of the authentic answer, and then sorting your closest, most authentic friends on that basis. That's how I sort my friends, by the way. I sort my friends on who's willing to give me an authentic answer versus who wants to give me the right answer. Ask a man for critical feedback about you, like how do you see me as a friend, and watch him look for the right answer or the authentic answer. That's a big one, man. That is a big one. But just know that all of this stuff, all of your vulnerability and truth and passion is a process. It's something that you work at. It's something that you become better at. It's a way of living. It's a way to do life. And if you commit to it, it's masculine. It's the act of being a man. And and if you get frustrated because you're not there yet, guess what? There's no there to get. You're there every day. You're doing it. It's the doing it that counts, not the success. It's the doing it that counts, and that's what builds self-esteem. That's what's going to lead to a very rich sex life with lots of women who you actually really dig. You really dig, and they really dig you, and it's very real and connected and authentic, and maybe you realize we're better as friends, and then you can stay friends with the women you break up with. It's a whole different way of being, and it's all about committing to this masculine process that I've laid out here. Now, I'm going to come on live again so we can do some Q&As. Let's see. Am I back live again? I think I am. All right. I think you guys can see me now. Oh, yeah, you can. I see my camera's on. Right on. Okay. So here's the deal. I am going to do this. I think that I'm under the impression that I just displayed a sticky. Let me try and do that again. Yeah, there it is. Okay, there's a sticky in the chat bar. There's a link on the sticky. And if you click that link that's on the sticky, you're going to be able to talk to me live, like we're going to be here. You might want to turn off your camera if you don't want to be seen, or put your hand over the camera, that kind of thing. But, you know, or not. Like, just know that this is somewhat public, right? And it may be publicly available in the future at some point. So disclaimer and all that, and just know that that's the case. But I would love to have a conversation with you about it. And the best way to talk to me right now is to click the link that you see on the sticky, and then you'll show up here. Now, when you click that link in the sticky, you're going to have to close this window once that window opens, because or mute this window. If you can find a volume control, you can mute this window. Otherwise, you're going to be hearing yourself having a conversation with me live, and then at the same time, you're going to be like stuck in this weird never land of listening to yourself from 20 seconds ago. So if you'd like to ask some questions, I'm going to give precedence, obviously, to people that I can have an actual dialogue with, so we can go back and forth, and you can say, hey, what does this mean, and that kind of thing. All right, so I've got one on, which is awesome. Like I said, if you want to turn your camera off, feel free. You will definitely need to turn off the other window by either muting its dialogue or closing it, and we'll be able to talk. And then afterwards, after we've had all those conversations, if there's time and it's not like 2 in the morning, I will go through the chat box stuff. But it's definitely more valuable for us to talk live this way, so we can have a little back and forth. So again, the link in the little sticky thing, and I think, let's see, I got somebody on there. Party Believe, something like that. You there?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. You remember me?
Hey, how you doing, kid?
Am I the only one on camera, or?
You're the only one at the moment.
Oh, yeah. I sent you a couple of questions in the chat bar, or in the to admin.
Let's talk about them live. And also, I think that as people come in, I also want to just mention, as other people come in and join this chat with us, because hopefully we'll get a bunch of people in here. I think when you arrive muted. You're going to have to unmute yourself to talk, but don't unmute yourself right away, because it's just going to get crazy. And we'll kind of talk one at a time. And if you're not muted, you might want to mute yourself. So, all right. What's your question, my friend?
You talked about vulnerability, and my understanding of it is that for a girl to be attracted to a guy's vulnerability and his honesty, it must be in the context of his strength, and not of his weakness. Like, if a guy is vulnerable and honest, and at the same time is very pitiful of himself, look down upon himself, in contrast to being confident and self-respectful, then she won't be attracted to him. She will just pity him instead of respecting him. In contrast to if he was honest and vulnerable and being confident at the same time. So I was wondering what you thought about that. Like, it depends on how you do it.
I think it's not true. I think you have to manage this, right? Vulnerability is always attractive if it's real, right? So there's a lot of levels upon which we can talk to a woman about our insecurity and the areas in our lives in which we feel inadequate and that kind of thing. It's highly attractive to talk to a woman about this. Why? Because she is too. And it gives her permission. It gives her a lot of permission to be vulnerable with you as well. But, you know, there's a time and a place where it's right and wrong, right? And you need to kind of recognize that, you know, there's kind of this, there's a difference between emotionally vomiting on somebody, right, and being vulnerable and real with them. There's a neediness implicit in going up to a woman and within 4 or 5 seconds saying, you know, I'm really insecure on women, and I don't know how to talk to women, but I want to talk to you because you were pretty, and maybe you could give me some feedback. But honestly, I don't really know myself so well. I don't know what to do, and you know, there's something about that feels like you're asking for pity. There's a transactional nature to it. There's something transactional, and I want something from you. I'm being vulnerable so that you'll give me something. In this case, maybe pity, or you know, you'll be nice to me, right? You'll be nice to me because I'm being pathetic, right? That's not the same as being authentic and vulnerable. Being authentic and vulnerable, though, very well might be that you're sitting there having a conversation with a woman, it's not going well, and you say, you know what? It's funny because I walked over here, obviously, because I'm attracted to you, obviously, you know, and I feel like it's not going well now, and it's making me nervous, and I was kind of confident when we came over here, now I'm feeling some anxiety, and I'm not a ladies' man, you know, I'm not super good at this, and maybe it's weird to talk about, but I'd love your feedback on this right now. I think if you said that to a woman and that was what was real, that was what was authentic, you'd have an unbelievable conversation with the rest of the night. And provided, like I said, none of these things exist in a vacuum, provided you also have been working on your confidence, provided your sexuality is also alive and well and in the room, and you've arrived as a man, that it's clear that your desired outcome is sex, right? That's also authentic, right? If all of those things are lined up right, not only is it not a problem to be vulnerable about your weakness, I think it's crack. I think, you know, I've had conversations like that with women many times. It's always gone extremely well because I don't consider myself a ladies' man. Like I said, you know, me walking up to a hot girl in a bar, that's not my skill. That's not my skill. And when I do, that's the kind of conversation I might have with her. Like, hey, you know, I'm not. This is an environment I'm super uncomfortable in. But I braved it for you because I, you know, saw you over here. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll put myself out there.
But you still, okay, you can't go up to every woman in a bar, but you can have long-lasting relationships with them, and with an abundance of women, I imagine. Or
yeah, listen, I mean, when I say I can't walk up to a woman in a bar, I mean, I went out to a bar once with Mystery, Eric Von Mock, right? And he said, there were a group of us there, he said, okay, see those two like supermodels over there in the corner? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to walk over to that group of guys over there, I'm going to tell some jokes, and they're going to laugh, they're going to make me their king. And then I'm going to go abandon them, and I'm going to walk over to the girls, then I'm going to go back over to the guys, I'm going to introduce the guys to the girls are going to worship me, the girls are all going to be laughing and love me, and then I'm going to walk out with both of those girls. And so he walks over to the guys, then he walks over to the girls, then he walks back to the guys, he brings the guys over to the girls, walks out with both girls. That's it. Just exactly what he said. I can't do that. I can't do that. That said, yeah, you know, I've started a lot of conversations with a lot of women in bars, sometimes ended up making out with them before the night was over, and, you know, very often ended up dating them for a long time. In fact, I'm married to a woman I met in a bar. I met my girlfriend in a bar. So, you know, but that's not when you limit yourself to this idea that you need to learn some magic trick for picking up women in a bar, you're cutting yourself off from, you know, most of the good relationships and sex that you're going to have in life. I think, by the way, it's awesome to go out and learn how to do this stuff from a pickup artist and then have that skill as well, provided you have it in this context, provided you have the context of knowing that, like, you don't want to be deceitful, and provided that you understand that there's this whole realm of training. But Real Social Dynamics teaches, I think, at this point, they take guys out and they say their whole thing is just keep approaching women until it's not scary anymore, and then you get to be yourself. That's kind of 90% of what they teach, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's how I view it too. So, you have no idea how much I agree with your fundamental message of this webinar. So it really resonates with me. But I got disconnected during your talk about confidence during that topic. So could you please just summarize very short what the points are to become confident?
What I'm going to do is, rather than that, because we've got 80 guys on, so rather than rehash that, what I'm going to do is the recording is going to be up, and on the page that the recording's up, I'm going to let you write comments and questions there too, and I'll try and continue to flesh this out further. But it'll probably take me a day or two to get the recording up, the way I normally do it. And passwords will be a private page where we can just talk amongst ourselves, and it'll be a little bit messy, but it'll be up there. If you want to stick around and ask follow-up questions, just hit mute now, and we'll kind of let the next person get on and talk.
Oh. Hey, Alex, can you hear me?
I can. Is that Matt?
Yeah, that's me.
Hey, man.
I'm sorry my camera's not on. I'm not that comfortable enough with it.
Yeah, totally. I got it.
All right, cool. So I have a question written down. I loved a lot what you had to say in this webinar. I want to practice these things, and I think a barrier I have to practicing these things is the people I meet. I want to have incredible, amazing relationships with women where both of us can grow a lot. And I also want to create a network of friends, men and women, who practice what you've described in this webinar. My question for you is how I can meet these men and women. I'm looking for practical advice if that's possible.
Yeah, I got a ton of practical advice for you. Matt, you might have to... Hey, man. Because I'm
sorry, my camera's not on. I'm not that comfortable enough with it.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay. Good. All right. So I want to give you a couple of practical ideas. One is I want to speak to the unspoken question, which is that you're not comfortable with the camera on, which is great. It's fine. It's vulnerable. It's true. It's authentic. And it's definitely where I would have been not that very long ago because I was ashamed of the fact that I had some social inadequacy. Inadequacy is like a very, very difficult thing for men to deal with. It's one of the things that I talked about in the email that I sent today. That we get kind of angry and upset by this whole process. So
I can relate to that.
Yeah, and there's nothing there's nothing bad about it. It's just where you are. And I think where you're going is you'll be really comfortable to have this conversation with your face showing. And then where you go next is, you'll be able to look back and go, oh, man, yeah, I remember when I was so socially uncomfortable and it was more difficult for me to, talk to women that I was attracted to. So
I'm looking forward to that day.
What's that?
I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the day comes and it comes well and not with great pain, not without effort, but not with great pain, if you kind of follow along and actually do these things. So in terms of finding a group of men, a group of women to practice with, first of all, you already know them. This stuff is like you can ask your mom a question and find out if she's giving you the right answer or the authentic answer. In fact, your mom will be the most inauthentic person you'll ever meet because she's going to only want to say nice things to you, right? So she's an obvious one. You're going to be like, oh, God, she is just saying the right thing and not even looking for the authentic thing, right? She's not even concerned with that conversation. But it's just everybody you know. You can just begin to observe it around you, and you can do a lot of these exercises alone, but I very highly recommend that you do some Google search or whatever in your area and see if you can find a men's group. Because a men's group is basically a group of men, and it's kind of a common thing now. A group of men get together once a week, and they hold each other accountable to authenticity, and they give each other direct feedback. And for me, I love this so much. I know that a man really likes me. I feel love, brotherly love from a man when he can look me in the eye and say, that thing you said, it was kind of full of shit, and I think it was actually kind of insecure. And they start, when they're telling me the truth, and I just love them for it. I love them for it because it takes a certain amount of integrity and also a certain amount of faith in me that I'm not going to be like a dick about it. That I'm the kind of man that could receive criticism, right? So when a man gives you direct criticism like that and tells you the truth about yourself, like to me, I just I'm so grateful. I just want to give them a giant hug, and that's what men's groups are about. It's about being able to talk about your stuff and then have other men give you their honest reflection of how they think you're being and who you're being. And I strongly recommend that for you.
I love that a lot. I didn't realize that totally makes sense to me in hindsight. That's what you should Google. I've been trying to find networks of like-minded people who are interested in growing as individuals. The only group that came to mind for that was Neil Strauss, The Society. But there's a side of that I think I don't like, and I want something more authentic, more real. And men's group is totally something that I will Google.
Right. Well, Neil's a good friend of mine, and he's a smart guy. And I imagine that there's value to that group, but maybe it's not everything you want. But I wouldn't necessarily exclude you. Maybe you want both. And you might also check out Craigslist, meetup groups and that kind of thing. There's a lot of opportunities here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have other practical tips? You said you had a couple.
Well, yeah. The first is, like I said, they're already everywhere. And the second is I would Google it and actually, try and get into a formal men's group. There was a site that used to list all of the men's groups called, I think it's bettermen.org, but they don't have that list anymore. It's just the guy's local things. But if you're in California, they're in California.
I want to be in California someday. Thanks for answering my question.
Yeah, my pleasure. Okay. If you wouldn't mind muting, we can move on to whoever's next.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hi. I guess to talk a little bit about what you mentioned about being more sexually male. What does that entail exactly, to be more sexually male?
Mm-hmm. So there's a very, very long conversation to be had here. It's so deep, and I meant it when I said that I'm actually planning on doing a program, possibly in December, a live program that'll be days long. I've actually got one of my mentors, Nathan Otto, to come teach with me. Sean Stevenson will be there, and some other guys like that. But the easy button in being sexually male is being that entity that desires female, right? It's your love of pussy. That's the most obvious, right? That's the most sexually male thing. Has to do with your mad, irrational, there's not a single cognitive thought in your frontal cortex that can make any sense out of your mad desire to put your penis into a woman's vagina. It's just entirely animal. It's 100% animal. It's it's this thing in your brainstem, and to some degree we have some shame over it. There's I was watching Louis C.K. does this whole stand-up. He's like, sometimes I just want to come in people's face. I see some guy gets on the elevator, I'm like, I want to come in his face. It's this male kind of thing, and it's maybe I ought to be ashamed of this idea that I want to ejaculate on somebody's face, but it's the chimp stuff, It's that stuff that makes you gender male, and it's weird on some level, and kind of shameful and dirty and wrong on a lot of levels, because when you were a kid, if you had a boner and you had to go up to the teacher called you up to the board. This happened to me. The teacher says, "Oh, come up and answer the question at the board. You got a boner," and everybody's going to see it, and they're going to laugh. Why? Because you have a boner, and boners are funny, and you should be ashamed of them. And if you show your penis to the girls at school, you're going to get sent home, and you're bad. You're going to be suspended, and and if you show your penis to some girls at the park, you're going to get arrested. It's it's obviously bad and wrong. It's so obvious that it's bad and wrong, and that destroys our ability as men to be attractive to females, because guess what? Females want cock, and they want a guy who's got a cock and who's not ashamed of his cock. So it's kind of it's a bit of a head trip, but getting good with it, I have male desires, and it's good, and it's beautiful, and it's about procreation and about furthering the species. It's a little chunk of immortality. It's the deepest, most powerful pleasure that we all commonly share as humans. And if you can kind of see that side of it, if you can live that side of it, and then even, like I was saying to Knut earlier, there may be a part of you that's still insecure about it. And if you can bring that into the light of real conversation with your lover. If you're with a woman and you're dating and you're like, you know, you're so beautiful and I feel all this desire, and there's a part of me that's ashamed of that still. And I don't like that part of me, and I would love to get rid of that. Kind of authenticity is going to make a woman go, meow, because she's in that dialogue too. She'll be like, let's solve this together right now. Check, please. We need to go back to my place. You know, there's a real possibility there for just being clear with the fact that you have desire. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just trying to find ways to practically implement that in a bar setting or in an active setting.
Yeah, just let it be real. Let it be real. You know, one of the things that I think made this easy for me is I went through a pretty lengthy period of my life where it's all I wanted to talk about. I just really wanted to talk about it all the time. You know, I ended up writing a book about it, right? I mean, clearly I have a bit of an obsession with good sex. And I just, every time I sat and talked to a woman, I'd say, what do you like in bed? You know, what do you like in bed? What's hot for you? I'm really interested. I'm trying to learn about what women think is good in bed. It's kind of an obsession of mine. And what do men do that you like? What did some guy do to you that blew your mind? What did some guy do that you thought was really disappointing, you know? I was having these conversations with women. Now, honestly, I was having them in a rather neutral way. I wasn't myself being sexual, so they didn't feel a sexual threat from me. But to the degree that I was saying it differently, and I was saying, so I have a question. What do you like in bed? And I'm bringing my sexuality into the room, she's going to be like, uh-oh. You know, who wants to know, right? So that conversation suddenly becomes dangerous and threatening. There's a possibility of rejection. Why? Why is there a possibility of rejection in that conversation? What's dangerous and threatening about it? Why might she slap me in the face or walk away? What about that conversation creates that? What creates that is I've become a sexual threat. I've become like a real possible person who she might end up fucking later. And that's vulnerable because I could be rejected. It's highly vulnerable. And if I'm still in my self-amusement and my confidence and I'm internally validated, right? My success or failure with her doesn't affect my rightness with me. If I've done all of these other exercises, this shit doesn't happen in an instant. You know, confidence is built. It's built, and it's going to require that you do the things that I suggested you do. It's not free. It costs, and it costs way more than $37 that I charge you for the webinar, right? It costs your time, and it costs like your frustration and your fear. You're confronting your fear, but the other end of it is such an amazing alive life, and it's the doing it. When you start to do it, you'll be like, wow, there's no other way to live. You take me up on this, and you just start down the road of the things I said to do, and within 2 weeks you'll be hooked. There's no other way to live. It's so much more juicy and alive.
I'll try it out. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you. Who do I got?
Do you hear me? Am I
Robert,
on?
how are you, buddy? Yep.
Oh my God. Okay. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Robert.
I've followed some of your things, you know, some of your programs before, and I've branched out and tried to piece together what will work for me. But coming back to what you've been presenting and what you presented here, it makes a lot of sense. Now, where I'm coming from, and it's also what I want. I want to be accepted for me, and I want to be me and not put on, you know, something artificial that later on will become obvious wasn't me. Yeah. The problem, though, that I have is partly a feeling of very much a lack of confidence in myself as a man, sexually, and also in the world. You know, I've had girlfriends over the years, and I've had some very good sexual experiences, so it's not like I'm coming from nowhere. I've had good jobs and so forth, but right now I'm at a point in my life, I'm 51, and I feel like I still haven't quite got to that authentic place. So it feels like, well, you know, I'd like to have someone that I'm really attracted to, and not just a girlfriend, and who's attracted to me, you know. So partly maybe it feels like I don't deserve it, or, you know, there's a lot of fear that I can't deliver. You know, the things you've talked about and the history that you've shared, various things that you've you know produced. you have a lot of experience that you're drawing on over a big chunk of your life, and your early experiences and so forth growing up. So with me, it's been quite different, and so I think there's so many gaps and holes that it feels like, can I make up this lost time, and am I ever going to find someone that I can actually have a family with and love and be loved? Because it's taken me so long to get to this point, and now that I'm, sort of at the midway point of life, it just seems like such a big stretch, and I know that anything is possible, but internally it feels like, how am I ever going to get there? Sometimes, a lot of the time, so.
There's no question attached to this, right?
I'm sorry?
Is there a question attached?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the question would be, have you ever seen a case like this, get out of the rut that I feel like I'm in? Or is your experience, are you more talking to guys who are in their 30s or 20s or whatever?
Oh, God, no. God, no. No, I mean,
I've never been married. I've had, long-term relationship for me is.
I'm 48, so I kind of your age. I get it, and first of all, I just want to acknowledge the important thing to acknowledge here is that your feelings are totally normal, right? Of course you feel that way. Of course you do, right? It's so easy to go. Oh, Jesus, I'm 51, and it feels like the starting gun went off a long time ago. Yeah. Everybody's been running down the track, and I just know that there's a race. I got it. So, but that's true of every facet of life. I just want to know it's true of every facet of life. I remember confronting, and also this deserving thing, man. Like, do I deserve it? Do I, am I worthy? I was, 30 years old. No, that's not right. I was 40. So on my 40th birthday, I was completely broke after having failed very dramatically at my previous career when I started this. And I was filled with, I don't deserve to make money. I don't know anything about business. How am I going to make this into a business? Who's going to want to read my sex advice? And it's a huge company now. It's crazy. I've got all these employees, and I'm somewhat famous. People recognize me in the street, and the deserving part was something that really held me back for a lot of years. It was something that Eben Pagan helped me out a lot with. And deserving is all about this self-appointment thing. Who decides who you deserve? Who deserves more than you, and who doesn't? Who shouldn't get the women you get? Who does deserve the woman that you want? Or for me, the business, the money, the success. So who makes these decisions? And actually, my friend Nathan Otto as well, who encouraged me to journal about it deeply until it vanished, until I was able to get rid of it and completely see that deserving doesn't exist in the real world. There's no such thing. The universe doesn't decide who deserves and who doesn't. It's just what you can have, and whatever you have is by definition what you deserve. Right? That's how the universe works, right? So the beautiful thing is that the world is your oyster. That every day, Tony Robbins has this whole thing. He says your whole life can change now, right now, and your whole life can be different. Yeah. It's just in the simple moment of a decision. He said your past doesn't equal your future. Yeah, that was Awaken the Giant Within, and I thought, wow, this is profound shit. I read this a long ass time ago. It didn't change my life at all, by the way. But I got it. It was real. I was like deep experience of insight, but no experience of beingness, of doing. Like I didn't go out and change my behavior, right? But I got this deep insight. So later on in my life, I met about a half a dozen people who were multi-millionaires who told some version of this story. One of them was Frank Kern, famous marketer. One of them was Eben Pagan. By the way, so Eben was broke. He was in a Christian rock band, living in a van, traveling around the country, and saw Tony Robbins and realized he could change his whole life if he wanted to, and did. Right? Frank Kern was living in a trailer park. Guy drives a Rolls-Royce Ghost now, right? I mean, he's one of the biggest marketers on earth, and but it was the same thing. He said, I said, well, what's that on the course? He said, Tony Robbins. I was like, so they read the book and took action. I read the book and had an insight. So
Right.
this seminar is no different. It's just no different. A lot of men are going to watch this right now and they're going to get an insight. They're going to go, oh, I feel in my heart that this is true.
Right.
Of course it's true. Like if I just allowed this to happen, it would, but I probably won't allow it to happen. And then they think about they'll do it next weekend or whatever. And I'm just saying there's exercises. Like I went out of my way to make this not just theory. There's practical exercises, and it's your choice to do them or not. And
So it's kind of like jump in whenever you're ready, but it's the same. It's a stream that will lead you to where you're suggesting.
I'm suggesting that there are guys in their 20s on this webinar. They can jump in whenever they like to, but you better fucking jump in.
Right.
Right. I mean, you better jump in. And I'll leave you with one last piece of encouragement, which is in I can't remember what the book is. Some book about successful people. The median age of the people, very highly successful people, when they made their great contribution, their great masterpiece, for which they're famous, the median age was 60. 60 was the median age of their great masterpiece, meaning my great masterpiece and my contribution to relationships could still be,
10 years away.
10 years in my future. Yeah, 10 years into my future, and 9 years into your future. So, yeah, your future is this golden, beautiful, mysterious thing. I would walk into it boldly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, who else do I got there? Anybody else want to ask a follow-up? I think I've answered all the people who are live, or anybody else want to jump on live by clicking the link. We're here. Either you guys got a follow-up, or should I hit the little chat board? I guess that means I'm going to hit the chat board. If you guys want to chime in, I give priority to the folks that show up live. Let's see. I actually need to remove the sticky so that I can see the chat board. So I think what I'm going to do is remove that and just put in the link. So now it's just the link in the sticky. I'm going to read Dave's message. There was a lot of interesting information on the webinar about the inner game side of attraction and how to hold an authentic masculine frame. I've spent several years working on these aspects of my personality. I've made a lot of internal improvements, but I still feel lost in terms of how to implement this on a practical level. For example, if I were to see an attractive woman tomorrow, I would still have no idea how to walk over and strike up a conversation that attracts her. The internal gains are great, but can you offer some practical suggestions for how to put this into action in a way that will build that attraction? Thanks. Yeah, I can. So I want to take this on a couple of levels, Dave. The first is, I'm glad you asked, because I think everybody must have that on their mind, right? That's an obvious question that I probably should have dealt with. So I'm not like super good at walking up to a woman and striking up a conversation. It scares the crap out of me, which is normal, right? That's the way it is for everybody. It's normal. So it doesn't matter if I'm at Whole Foods and I see some girl in the fruit aisle, and I may even move my cart around, pretend I'm looking at salad dressing so that I can get another peek at her because she's so beautiful, and I'm still not saying hello. Like, that's me. I'm not dynamite at this. And if I'm out at a bar with a bunch of buddies, especially they're single buddies and they're all hitting on women, I'm not super comfortable with doing this. But I will tell you that who I am is an incredibly sexually attractive man because of this stuff. And listen, I'm not the ugliest guy on earth, but I know for sure that I'm not every woman's type. Some women think I'm attractive, some don't. But I've noticed that the better a woman gets to know me, the more attractive she finds me. Why? Because I'm so fucking authentic, and I walk the walk on this. Like, I really believe in my capacity sexually and my ability to show up as a great man for a woman. I'm really a great boyfriend. I love sex. I love having fun. Like, what? I'm authentic. I tell the truth. I never lie about anything. It's literally just, I'm like Dracula with the cross with lying. I just fucking can't stand it. It makes me feel like shit. So I'm kind of like a perfect boyfriend. What woman wouldn't want to be with me? And I have that frame. That's the way I feel. And women feel that. So what happens is I don't need to walk up to an attractive woman. I don't need to. just women begin to notice me. Like over time, the accretionary nature of just living, of just being in the real world with real people and real friends and showing up places, like over time snowballs. Like it starts slow, but the more you actually make these adjustments to your real behavior, the more like it just starts to add up. That's one side of it. That's one side of it. It would be weak if I left you there. But it's a really important side of it. Like, I just want you to know that there were years and years in my life when I didn't pick up a single chick. I never walked up to a single woman for years, but I had like, 8 women that I was dating at any given time. It was just like the phone was, hooked into a lot of sex if I wanted it. And it was honest and authentic and easy, and everybody knew about everything. There was no creepy shit. It wasn't a big deal to me at the time. And if I go out with a bunch of single buddies, one of the games that my buddies like to play, particularly when I was living in the Caribbean, and it's really fun, and I recommend it, is let them point to a girl and say, walk over to her. And that just forces you to approach, right? It just forces you to approach. And the nice thing about a forced approach is there's no spin on it. There's no winning or losing. And my favorite pickup line in the world is, "Hi, I'm Alex." And it works. It works like crazy. The beginning of the night, if you walk out to a bunch of women, you'll find your results are not so good because you're extremely stifled. Which again, Owen Cook talks about. If you really want to, get past that, there's no better way than to do it. If you go to an amusement park and you stand in line at the roller coaster, it is scary as fuck just being on that line. It's really scary getting on the ride, and the ride is terrifying. And then if you go on a second time, the line is a little less scary, and the ride itself is less terrifying. And if you ride the ride 6 times across a weekend, it's not scary at all anymore. It ceases to be scary. Approaching women is exactly the same. It's just exactly the same. Like, once it's not scary anymore, and I gave you some really good clues on how to make it not scary. Like, be present. Make your first couple of approaches just about like focusing on being present and compassionate and curious. Those things will not get you laid, by the way. The guys in the Authentic Man program, which is a great program, but their whole thing is like, like really get into her world and be curious and whatever. That's all well and good, and I'm sure she'll want to be your friend, but it's not going to lead to sexual attraction. Sexual attraction is also going to require, a frame of confidence and masculinity and all those other things, right? It's going to require more than just compassion. It's going to require more than just presence. But those are easy buttons for getting over your fear and for just like getting out of the weird internal dialogue in your head of fear around approaching women. Just approach them. Just walk up to them. My experience has been I walk up to women, I'm like, hey, I'm Alex. And if I'm really clear on being present, non-transactional, and self-amused, as Owen says, just self-amused, I'm like, this is going to be fun. I'd say 90% of the time they're going to be interested in talking to me. And 50% of the time, I leave the conversation because I'm like, it turns out this isn't that interesting. She's not that funny. She's not as good looking up close, or whatever it is. I always say, I'm married now. I haven't done this in a couple of years, but the last time I did it, it was nothing but fun. It was nothing but fun. There's no possibility of rejection. It's not like rejection. I mean, what's being rejected? You're just having a conversation. And if it's boring, you move on to another conversation. And then some women they're busy. They don't want to be in a conversation with you right now. It's like my friend and I are talking. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. I don't make a big deal out of it. But for the most part, particularly like the bar and club scene, I'm sorry to just keep like going on and on answering this one question for those of you who are waiting, but this is kind of important. Like, if you go into a bar and a club and you're learning like pickup stuff on some pickup seminar, like you're out in one of these like groups of guys that goes around and they're like learning pickup lines and stuff. A lot of those guys, they go out and they learn a bunch of stuff. They get laid like on that weekend. They go out with like Mystery or Real Social Dynamics. They spout a couple lines and they get laid that weekend. They're like, this shit works. This shit works. It's not because the shit worked. It's because she wanted to get laid. That's like the big like weird thing. That's this like the story about my friends when we went to this party and she was intentionally letting the guys think that they were getting her drunk, but it was her game. It was her game. Anytime you go out to a bar and club, there's a pretty decent percentage of women in there that really would like to get laid that night, and it's just don't fuck it up. You know, it's not that hard. There's a certain percentage of women, and it's probably not a giant percentage, that just want to get laid, but there's a giant percentage that would love to like meet some cool guy. You know, they'd love to have a conversation with a guy and find out what he was about, and you know, and her initial reaction might be, well, he's not, you know, I was expecting Brad Pitt, and he's not, and that could be her initial reaction. The more she talks to him, he's like, wow, this guy's authentic, and there's something kind of like really masculine and powerful about him. Like he really trusts his cock. You know, he trusts his cock. He feels good about being a man and being sexual. I'm starting to feel a little warm in this room. You know, it's like it's amazing. You can see her attraction flip if you do the work. If you do the work, and it's not like you can't just look at. I'm also, by the way, I'll put the slides that I presented from. I'll put that up there too, the PowerPoint, so you can kind of take a look at it. But merely having the epiphany that this is true will not get you laid. The epiphany alone is not. You actually have to do the work. But if you do this process, if you commit to when you approach a woman to saying what's true and not the right answer, she will be madly attracted to you. Probably. I don't know, you know, you just might really not be her type. You know, there's some girls who like, they're into dudes with tattoos. It's like their thing. Like, they want a dude who's got like tattoos up down his face and on his neck. And there's some other woman who's like, you know, she's looking for Don Draper. She wants that guy in a suit and whatever. And it's like, and you're just not that guy. You know, it's like, it's fine. It's like I have some friends who, it doesn't matter what her personality is. She could have the face of a supermodel, but if she doesn't have a big rack, she's not pretty. Or a big ass or whatever. You know, it's like, people have pretty, you're not going to be attractive to every woman. I'd let go of that. Not every woman's going to be attracted to you. So I don't understand why you need to make a big deal out of it. So if you can kind of erase that, you'll realize, like I said, there's most women in the bar like really do, they're dreaming of meeting some interesting guy who's like authentic and challenging and, you know, and is self-amused and fucking around with them and teasing them and, you know, being cocky funny or whatever. It's like you can learn a lot from the pickup artist guys too, and put it within this framework and have a lot of fun with it. But it's not necessary. You don't have to pick up chicks in bars. But yeah, it's fun. There's no downside to it. It's like once you authentically know that it's okay for you to be sexually interested in a woman, then all she has to do is say no thank you, and that's authentically okay too. But if you approach enough of them, you're going to end up going home with a lot of them because you're out there to get laid. You know, they're out there to meet men. They're out there to get dates. It's what they're there for. The ugly ones, the pretty ones. And by the way, the one that you think is ugly, some other guy thinks is hot. The one you think is hot, some other guy's like, her, you know? I mean, and if you go out with your male friends who are single, you know that. So, you know, just because she's your type doesn't make her less approachable. You know what I mean? If you go after the one that your buddy thinks is hot, he goes after the one that you think is hot, you'll both be very charming, right? But the key is to learn how to not put up your mask when you're with the girl who you find attractive. If you can learn to do that, you don't need to meet her in a bar or club. You're going to meet her everywhere anyway. There are women fucking everywhere. There's millions of them, you know? And over time, it really does become a giant snowball. All right. That was a really, really long answer. All right. Assuming there's sexual attraction, what's the advisable progression? Sex first, then figure out compatibility, or determine compatibility first and then decide whether to move towards sex? Well, this is totally individual, right? I mean, it's your life and your game. You know, I have an enormous number of readers who think sex doesn't happen before marriage, and that's fine. You know, whatever your personal comfort is right. For me, and I think for most people, certainly the vast majority of women you're going to meet, sex first, of course. Sex is easy. Sex is a physical act. Anybody can have sex. Right? Sex is easy. But really, you know, getting along with somebody and developing an intimate, deep relationship is hard. It's like if you're into playing basketball, you might go down to the basketball court and play pickup basketball with a lot of dudes. But I don't know how many of them are going to become like, you know, your brother, like the dude who's going to be one of your groomsmen at your wedding. Very few, right? I mean, that's hard. Like the barrier to entry of a woman who you want to make into a girlfriend is very high. The barrier to entry of a woman that you want to make into your wife is even higher, right? But the barrier of entry for a girl you want to fuck is pretty low. Right? I want to fuck a lot of girls, but there aren't too many I'd want to marry. So, you know, I think the progression is sex, of course, and I think the vast majority of women agree with that. You encourage to go for sex. Do you need to get a feel first for the girl's value and expectation regarding sex? Some girls think that having sex means serious relationship. Additionally, wouldn't having sex cloud your judgment and not seeing things until it's too late? Wouldn't having sex cloud your judgment? I don't know. Maybe sex would cloud your judgment. By the way, this is a follow-up from the same guy, in case it's not obvious to those who are following along. That's the same guy asking the question. So there are girls with strong moral feelings around sex, and they feel like if they have sex with you, then that means you're, in some kind of a relationship. And you should be mindful of that. If you know that that's the case, and you know that you don't want a relationship with her, I think it's a good idea to tell her that. I would certainly tell her that. But generally speaking, she'll self-select, right? A girl who thinks that sex is a serious thing and doesn't want to be having sex with somebody she's not in a relationship with isn't going to have sex with you on the first night. Or you're going to have to date her for a while before she's going to want to have sex with you. Scratch that. If you do this right, she's going to want to have sex with you right away, but she's going to be like holding herself back, right? She's not going to give in to her desire for sex with you. And, then you've got to decide how you feel about her. I know that if you're a young guy in your 20s, when I was young in my 20s, if a woman was holding back because she wasn't ready to have sex with me yet, I felt a great deal of importance to sticking around until I could have sex with her because I needed to prove something to myself. I needed to prove that I could do that because of my own problems with self-esteem. I don't need to do that anymore, and I wouldn't do that. I think it's a terrible thing to do, but we're humans, right? And humans do all kinds of weird shit. We're not always nice. Every human is mean once in a while. Me too. And I've done terrible things in my life. I've lied, I've cheated, and that's because I'm a human. That's why I did that. But I really make a strong effort to not lie or cheat, and I've gotten much better at it as you mature. Hopefully you get super good at that game. And I think if a woman really wants a relationship, and you think a relationship might be cool too, and you pursue it, that's awesome. But if she really wants a relationship and you just really want pussy, I think you should tell her that. There's a funny thing that happens sometimes. There are women who really, they're holding out for a relationship before they'll have sex with you. And then if you tell them, honestly, like, this is never going to be a relationship. I'm really physically attracted to you, but I don't see us being that kind of compatible, and I don't really think we're going to do that. She'd be like, yeah, you're right. Thanks for being honest. Let's have another glass of wine. And 20 minutes later, she's in your bed having sex with you. What happened? Well, she gave up on the relationship thing, and now it's okay for her to have sex too. It wasn't a religious thing for her. It was just that she wanted you to respect her, whatever. So there's so many strange dimensions to this. I remember I had an experience. A friend of mine we were out, and he was talking to this girl, and they started kissing and making out furiously in the middle of the bar. And she said to him, oh my God, I never do this on a first date. And he said, this isn't a date, baby. We're never going to see each other again. And she immediately pulled him out of the bar and fucked him. It's like that gave her permission. He was like, yeah, it's not, what are you talking about? This is just animal physical stuff. So, because that's what was so authentic and so true. And he was so right with his masculinity, his sexuality. And, by the way, this guy's bald, overweight, but, he just thinks sex is okay. He's okay with his sexuality, and that led him to be her choice. That was her choice. When she said, I never do this, that was her kind of covering her own insecurity and anxiety. She was in the bar to get laid, obviously, and he let her know that he'd be a safe choice. So, all right. Do a Google search on No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Glover. I think that could be the men's group that he's looking for. Dude who's looking for a men's group. If Dr. Glover has men's groups, awesome. He's a really cool dude. I've interviewed him. He's very good. I'm often in a situation where I'm talking to a nice girl and she's clearly interested and she's suddenly turning off. How can I get the sexual tension back? So, that's a really tactical question. I'm not an expert on that. Like how to, the tension in the line, the sexuality, like I don't play that game. I really think that there's a meta game. Like there's like this kind of game of cat and mouse of, do I compliment her, or do I, neg her, or do I feign disinterest, or so you can do that stuff, right? And that's called the the confident veneer. right? And it works, I guess. I mean, I'm sure it works, right? It didn't work for me. It made me horrifically insecure. So I don't know, but I see it works for some people. It made me feel like shit, and I just noticed that I was doing shit wrong, and it made me self-conscious. And I think if you could persist with it, you can get through self-consciousness, eventually become its master, and then do like all the body language things right, and know when to kind of like, oh, you know, you and I would never get along, and all this pickup artist stuff, right? I'm sure you can make it work if you practice it enough. But what I'm suggesting is, if you get your internal frame right, if you get all this other stuff right, by doing the work to get it right, and you really get to like, I like me, I really like, I'm good with me, and I'm good with my sexuality, if you like really get this stuff, and then you're really there for self-amusement. You're not just like feigning self-amusement. You're not like gaming the game of what would I look like if I was looking self-amused while talking to this woman. But you actually like you were saying things from the frame of self-amusement. You would be saying the right things, and you wouldn't have to worry about her losing interest. You know, if she lost interest, then, you know, fuck her. That could happen. But, you know, chances are you said something that indicated neediness or transactional, or you were, you know, talking to her, trying some tactic that you were hoping. In fact, by the way, I had this experience years after, I told you, I knew these pickup artist guys, I tried some of their stuff, it made me very insecure, I became very self-conscious. Years later, I've gotten over that, and I'm finally authentically relating with women again, getting laid a lot. And I was out with this girl on a date, and it was going very well, and we were laughing, and the conversation died for a minute. It just died, and it was fine. You know, I mean, we were just sipping our wine, but there was kind of nothing to say. There was a little bit of an awkward silence. Now, authentically, vulnerably, truthfully, I could have named it and said, well, wow, awkward silence, or I could have just enjoyed the awkward silence. You can become a connoisseur of the fun of an awkward silence. There's a lot of sexual tension in an awkward silence. Those were all possibilities, but instead, dumbass that I was, I thought, well, this is a great place to fill in one of those lines that I saw the pickup artist guys use that worked so well. I wish I could remember which line it was. I don't remember what line it was. But I pulled out one of those lines, and she kind of like an electric shock, because she was used to me being authentic and being me. And suddenly I put this veneered line on, and she got very angry. She said, "Don't do that again." I said, "Don't do what?" She was like, "Oh, I don't know. I felt something weird." It was so strange, you know. She just sensed it. It was the oddest thing. It was just the oddest thing. So I think, you know, if you feel the sexual tension dropping or whatever, there's two possibilities. One is to frantically search your brain for the tactic to use so that you can get it back. And the other thing you can do is to not pay attention to that frantic voice, not try and find the right thing to say, but just be with it in the moment. I think if the sexual tension dropped suddenly when, like, I was going really well with a woman, she's laughing, she's enjoying me, and suddenly she goes cold, I'd say, hey, you know, I felt like things were going really well, and suddenly, like, I felt things go cold. Am I imagining that? Or is there something that I said? Is something going on? I'm 100% sure that's what I would say. Would it work? I don't care if it would work. It's what's real. You know, I'm not trying to make it work. I'm there for my amusement. And when you get that, when you really get that you're there for your amusement, and if she's just a hot, cold, crazy girl, yeah, I mean, you know, maybe I still wanted to fuck her. Whatever, there's 9 other girls in the same room, you know, like, you got to let go of this, you know, people call it the scarcity mentality, but that's a new agey way of just saying there's a lot of women. There's just a huge number of women, and there's no shame in the idea that she's not attracted to you. So what? Not every woman's going to be attracted to you, but a lot will. An enormous amount will if you can be a good dude, a confident dude, a masculine dude, right? Okay. Thanks for what you do. Good question. I'm on target without last comment. I think that a woman needs to see that you have a plan for dealing with whatever it is that you are being vulnerable about. Contrast, I think I'm fat with, I think I'm fat so I'm getting into the gym. The first looks weak, the second looks masculine. If you have problems, you need to have solutions too. Being vulnerable is okay, but being helpless is not. That feeds her own insecurity, and women seek security. Okay, yeah, I mean, you know, I see that. And I think that if, it's kind of a weird thing. It's like women seek security, then why is she getting on the back of the motorcycle with that guy? You know, it's like, and going, ah, and screaming, and then she's going to go fucking without protection. It's like, do women really seek security? I mean, on some level, humans seek security because we don't, we don't want to die. We don't want to be socially rejected by the tribe and die alone. I mean, this is hardwired stuff, right? I mean, on some level, of course that's true, but I think you're missing a bigger point, which is that if your intention is to play the vulnerability game, it's like, how do I decode the vulnerability game? Well, I'm going to say something vulnerable about myself. But at the same time, I want to display to her the characteristic that I'm a man with a plan, because women like a man with a plan. So I guess what I'll do is I'll give her some vulnerability with some a man with a plan. It's like you're gaming vulnerability. You're full of shit. You're looking for the right answer is what that is. And that's how the women smell shit. Women smell shit when you do that. It's like enormously different than like, it's like, why did the subject of your fat come up? That's the thing, right? Why did it come up? And if it came up authentically, then what's true about the fact that you're fat? That's what I would look at. Like, what's true about it? So if she's like talking to you and then she starts losing interest, and you're like, God, I think that's because I'm fat, and you say to her, we were talking, and then you seem to lose interest, and I know it's maybe just my insecurity, my inferiority, but I feel like that might be because I'm fat. It might not be, right? I mean, maybe that, but if that's what's true, if that's what you really felt, it's not a line. You got this. You can't game vulnerability. You can't game it. As soon as you're gaming it, it's not vulnerability by default, by what's real. And if she was like, well, no, I don't really care about weight so much. I mean, but do you have a plan for that? Clearly you're insecure about it. Do you have a plan for that? And you're like, honestly, I don't. Like, I feel a bit defeated by it. But I don't really want to get sidetracked on that, because really what I want to know is why did the sexual tension seem to drop between us? You know what I mean? Or you go into a whole conversation about, what's true for you, or maybe you actually have a plan about your weight. Do you have a plan about your weight? Do you feel good about your plan about your weight, or do you feel like, man, I've had a lot of plans about my weight and none of them worked? Like, what's real, man? What's real? Like, you can't fake vulnerability. It's either vulnerable or it's a game, and it just can't fucking be both. So, you have to be unself-conscious about trying to display your high value. The act of trying to display high value is enormously low value and enormously inauthentic, right? So when Neil Strauss invented the term DHV, display of high value, I mean, part of the only way that works, and it does work for him, but the only way it could possibly work would be if she didn't see through it. Like, she'd have to not sniff out that you were doing that to display high value, or she'd be disgusted. And rightfully so, because you're just full of shit and trying to, like, get into her pants by pretending to be somebody else. And there's something revolting about that. There's just something gross about it. Whereas just going, man, I really like to fuck her, and I'm going to try and make her laugh and whatever, but we both know that I'm doing it because I want to fuck her, is so honest. And it works just as well. It really works just as well. So, all right. And I'm not sure I can convince you of that, but it's true. How do you balance deep, present listening with keeping the conversation going? I find when I'm in my body, there's no mental chatter. I can't find any words to say. Yeah, that's fine. I think if you're deeply present and listening, and then there's a natural point where she stops, then you can process it. You can process it and feel around for what's true and not what's the right thing to say. Now, if you're deeply listening, you're really engaged, you're present, you're in your body, you're listening to what she's saying, and then she stops and she's like, what do you think? And then your next step is, what would be the right thing to say, so she'd be attracted to me here? Then that's where you jump the shark, right? That's where the train went off the rails. That's the point where you have to, like, what do I think about that? You say, honestly, like, I don't feel like I'm qualified to answer that. I don't have an opinion on that. That's way cooler than being like, I have the smartest answer on earth. Unless you do have the smartest answer on earth, which I usually do. Is there a replay for this? I'm at work and missed a few parts. Yeah. It's gonna take me probably a day or two but I'm going to get the recording of this and I'm going to put it up on private page, password protect it, and then maybe we can have some dialogue there as well as I have time. If there's 10 million questions, it might take me a while to respond, but I'm pretty committed to, you know, making this good material. For the morning journal to become self-confident, can you give some examples of answering the question, who would I become if I was 5% more intentional in my life? Well, the difference between being intentional and unintentional in your life is the difference between, you know, just being led along and actually pursuing what you say your dreams are. So, you know, if I was 5% more intentional in my life, I would probably write a newsletter every morning, you know, just so that I'm constantly in communication and hitting it and finding ways to answer questions and give value to you guys. If I was 5% more intentional in my life, I would be nicer to my mom. I find that a lot of times when I'm interacting with my mother, I have a lot of knee-jerk reactions. It's a classic example of personality being an emergent with the environment. When I'm with my mom, I become a little boy again, and a lot of things that she says irritate me. I'm like, Mom! Right? But if I was 5% more intentional in my life, I think I would probably work on just being nicer to her because she loves me, and everything she means comes from love. If I was 5% more intentional in my life, I think you get the idea, right? It's just like, what would you do if you're 5% more intentional? And I really advise you, Nathaniel Branden, I should say, I'm really just repeating him, advises that you don't filter yourself. It could be, if I was 5% more intentional in my life, I would watch a little less porn. If I was 5% more intentional in my life, I'd want to get laid more. If I was 5% more intentional in my life, I'd listen to Alex's program webinar again so that I could get some more stuff out of it. If I was 5% more intentional, I'd scratch my ass in public. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, it doesn't matter. You want to do it that moment that you wake up before you pee. If you really have to pee badly, like you really fucking have to go, then you're going to have to write really fast. And that's perfect. It's going to like force you to like come up with 5 or 10 super fucking fast. And it'll be the first thing that comes up in your head instead of your filtered thing. That's the pure essence of it. And that's what works. That's what works. And then you can kind of, you know, consider what you just wrote. You'll have no choice. It's out there, you know. Hi, Alex. I'm on completely the same page. I, too, want to be accepted for myself and find someone whom I really want to be with on many levels, but fear I cannot deliver the goods. Right. Yeah, right. Don't we all? I mean, isn't that it? Isn't that what it is to be a human? Right? Isn't that like that terror that maybe we're inadequate? I'll tell you what. I've had the experience dozens and dozens of times over again at men's groups or seminars like the Landmark Forum, which, by the way, I recommend. It's you know, it's a little culty, but I highly recommend. But all these self-help things like Landmark Forum, I've experienced over and over again, and also just having authentic dialogues with men and having authentic dialogues with people that come to me for help and are working with me one-on-one. The experience I have over and over again is men saying, I feel like I'm faking it. I feel like I don't have the goods, like I can't deliver. That's what it is to be human. The common sense of being a human is sometimes feeling like a fraud, a fake, and not good enough, not worthy of love. And for what it's worth, every woman feels that way too. This is what it is to be human. So what happens is that's your internal voice that I'm asking you to monitor and watch, and then say, well, is that true? Is there a way for me to reframe this? Like I say to myself, I don't know if maybe I don't have the goods. Maybe I'm not good enough to get a beautiful, intelligent, full of life, wonderful woman. Like, why would she love me? You know, it's a legitimate thing to ask. And so the first thing I would do is forgive myself for asking it. Like, don't get down on yourself for it. That's what it is to be human. All humans do that. And then just ask, is it true? And it's not, of course. Of course it's not true because we're all the same. We're all the same. And there's a lot of douchey guys out there. If you're an emotionally available, good guy who wants to cherish her, and you're like reading my products because you want to have a great, rich, beautiful sex life, it's passionate on the long term, and you want to be honest and authentic, and you're relating with her, like, you're one of the fucking best guys on the planet, right? That's the reframe. I mean, the reframe is that you actually are awesome if you're the kind of guy that cares enough to, you know, read Revolutionary Sex because you want to make her experience wonderful and you want to connect with her authentically versus become a douchebag pickup artist who learns a bunch of lines and isn't going to give her a good sexual experience, like, you're not that guy. And there's a bunch of guys that don't know the difference. Like, they've never heard of a pickup artist, they've never heard of me. You know, they're going through life quite unconsciously. And one of the things that they have in common with you is they very often feel inadequate. That's what it is to be human. And if you can love yourself through that, then you can love humans. And if you can love humans, you become a very compassionate, attractive human. Ah, this is good. Thank you, guys. Masculine and sexual ease. How do you be more sexually male? Kind of talked about that a little bit, but you know, just briefly again, there's a couple of ways of being sexually male, but the most obvious one, the really key one, is that you sexually desire women. Like the desire for pussy is the most obviously male thing you could do, and it's the thing we stifle. We pretend we don't. We're like, oh, I don't know. No, that would be weird. You know, it's like, of course we do. So it doesn't matter if you have a strong religious belief against having sex on, you know, not until you're married. That's fine, but you still have this desire. Right? It's in there. It's in there, and you've taken a vow of chastity or until you get married. But the masculine desire is still in there. And if you play this game of getting married without like letting on that you have that desire, then you're going to end up ultimately in a marriage that's not very passionate. And I don't think God wants that for you, so don't do that. You know, like be authentic, be real. It's like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. We're all sinners, right? I mean, didn't Jesus say, you know, cast the first stone, he was without sin, and then nobody could throw a rock? Why? Because we're all sinners. You know, it's good. Trust me, it's all good. It's good to be masculine. And the other thing that I talked a lot about in my orgasms product, which is a program really about how to give good orgasms. A big component of that is getting a woman aroused, and a big component of getting aroused is being masculine. One of the things I talked about in that program, I think it's really on point, is that in sexual interactions, the masculine energy is the subject, and the feminine energy is the object. Meaning, I desire you, you're the object of desire. I'm the fucker, you're the fuckee, right? And a lot of that leads to a series of behaviors around leading and around being the sexual aggressor. That's part of why if you try and have sex with a woman, if you make your move and she gets to say no, she's like, that guy's a man. He's all man, right? Whereas if you're a gentleman and you wait until she's ready and she says, I'm ready for sex now, then you made her make the move. You made her be the boy. Now she's masculine, and you're feminine, and that kind of kills off some of the sexual attraction for her. If you like a woman who's very sexually aggressive and you want her to like hold you down and have her way with you, then the masculine thing, the way to be the subject of that, the way to be the leader of that is to say, it would really turn me on if you tied me up and fucked me. Right? In other words, it's your idea, right? So that allows her to still feel like a girl. You don't want her to have to feel like she had to be the man. Let her be a girl while she's, you know, tying you up and giving you a slow blowjob. If that's what you want, then be clear in your intentions. Best example I've seen of all these things is a guy named Shay Carl. He's on the Shay Tards channel on YouTube. He provides a good model of all these things that you're talking about. Awesome. I don't know who he is, but I'll look it up. Same question, only substitute inadequacy in place of presence. Uh-oh. Maybe I need to find what came before that. Presence is a real problem for me. Can you give me some ways to improve this? Are there any ways to train this that are fast and easy? Yeah. I'll reiterate what I said, you know, on the slide. It's really important. First thing for presence is meditation. I mean, it's the hardest place to be present, right? So meditation is really about not getting distracted by your thoughts, not going off into fantasy, anxiety about the past, worry about the future, what you did wrong, what you did right, but to really be in the moment in your body, right? So a lot of times that means focus on your breathing or this kind of thing. So it's easier. I would work on that. There's so many benefits to meditation, right? So you should work on that. But then there's this other piece of it, which is that when you bring it out into the real world with humans, you have something that you get to be present with, which is, you know, this distracting thing called her, right? So I would practice being present with your friends, just normal people, right? So you're out having a beer with your buddy. He's telling you a story about this funny thing that he saw. Be present with him instead of like queuing up your funny story. Next, like, oh yeah, he's telling a story. I got you. And you're like, wait, yeah, hurry up, because I can't wait to tell my story, right? Instead of doing that, just listen, like really be present, like. Take it on multiple channels as well. Sometimes like the words are not enough. What's their emotional state? What's their motivation? Why is he telling you the story? It's really interesting to like really pay attention to why your buddy is telling you the story. Is his motivation to amuse you? Is his motivation self-amusement? Is his motivation to show you he's cool? Is his motivation, you know what I mean? Like sometimes your buddy's motivation is to show you he's cool. He's like, yeah, dude, you won't believe this thing I did. I was awesome, right? And that's cool. That's a human thing. It's like, oh, yeah, my buddy wants to be cool in front of me. So notice that. Like, that's all being present. Being present is like really engaging. Like, what's his emotional state? Is he happy, sad, angry, frustrated, excited? You know? And if you can do it with him, then you can do it with a woman, right? That's the piece of that. So this idea of presence sometimes results in you being a listener. And as I said earlier, sometimes your greatest contribution to a conversation is your silence, right? And it's just a learning experience. So I would learn that, and then worry about taking the next step, which is like the presence alone. I don't think results in a whole lot of sexual attraction. I think it's an attractive quality. Presence is attractive quality. You walk up to a girl and you're just like really present with her, and she's kind of like, "What's this guy doing?" Right? I mean, it's not in and of itself a like supercharged sexual thing. But to the degree that you're present with your self-amusement, you're present with like, I'm just out to have fun and I love everyone, I'm going to give you a hug, I'm going to give you a hug. Whoa, you're too hot to hug, I might, get too anxious, and, I'm just having fun, right? To the degree that you're doing that, but it's like in a party, a bar, right? Not so much in Whole Foods. So, all right. Let's see. Okay, it's a long one. I think in order for a woman to perceive a guy's vulnerability and honesty as attractive, it depends on how he expresses the vulnerability and honesty, because if a guy is vulnerable and honest about himself in a way where he's needy and looks, yeah, this is Knut. We answered this live, so I'm not going to recover that. What do you do to turn on a woman with low libido, deep and varied experience with other boyfriends, who loves you but never ever makes any effort to initiate sex or to make sex exciting? How do you turn her on? Well, this is complicated, man, because if she has a low libido, there's a lot of possible causes for it, right? She's had a lot of varied experience with other boyfriends. She loves you. Never makes any effort to initiate sex. Okay, bunch of things I want to pick out of this. The first is, why is her libido low? Is she on antidepressants? Is she, is there some hormonal reason? Is she, overweight, not take care of herself? Is her self-esteem taking a hit recently? Does she have a lot of anxiety at work? Sometimes our libidos drop, men and women. I've gone through very stressful periods of my life where my libido just hit rock bottom. I remember, I think I was like 33 and my libido just dropped off, and I was like, fuck, at 33, this young, and now it's gone. I thought it was gone forever, but, a year later I was hornier than ever. So, I mean, it's like it comes, it goes. So, why does she have a low libido? I think there's a really relevant question there. There could be some really powerful reasons that you don't need to be self-conscious about, right? So I would examine that. Then the second possibility, and you really need to be courageous in examining this, is she just have no libido with you? Are you the reason she has no libido? It's a real possibility, right? I mean, you yourself may have, certainly many men have had the experience of being very attracted to a woman and years later just losing interest in her, right? So I think that when that happens, that's our fault and their fault, right? It takes, you're both in this together. You're a couple. You're both responsible for maintaining an active and healthy and passionate sex life. So If her libido drops, then you really need to confront the possibility that there's something you're doing that's sexually repelling her, right? That's a real possibility. So again, I don't want to just pitch my programs, but I program about lasting passion and attraction. Actually, I think it's not for sale right now. I did a webinar about it, but there's just a shit ton of stuff there. I will make it available soon. I just haven't productized it yet, but I will. It's in the works. It's a great program, and I would look at that. But I have a little hint of what might be going on. So I have a little clue in what you said. Now, I may be way off. Like, this might be way off, but I think it'll be instructional to every guy listening. When you say to me, she never initiates sex anymore, or she never initiates sex like I have to, I just want you to know that that's normal, okay? Women don't like to initiate sex because initiating sex is masculine, and your expectation of her initiating sex is feminine. And if you are in your feminine, that might be killing off her sex drive. Like, you being mindful of your masculine role in the relationship helps. So the more often that you initiate sex and do it skillfully and beautifully by showing her your turn on and your arousal and making it fun and tickling her and holding her down and, biting her earlobes and, just really being fun and smelling her smell and just being like, oh, you're so fucking hot. Come here. Like, the more that you become that guy who embodies that kind of masculine subject, not object of the sexual interplay, the more aroused she's going to be when you're around, and the more feminine she's going to be. She starts laughing and giggling and doing more feminine things. So when you're masculine, it makes her more feminine. When she's more feminine, she's happy. Women love to be feminine. It's fun for them. Like, it's fun for us to be masculine, right? And a lot of times we're not masculine because we're like, oh, what if my masculinity is rejected? What if I'm like, woman, come here, I want to fuck you, hot little. Come here without ass, right? That's what you want to say. But then you don't, because you're like, what if I say that? And she's like, ew, gross, or, don't objectify me, right? So then we're like, ow, I was punished for being masculine. That hurt. Now she thinks I'm not a man, and that's like, demons from our childhood, right? So it's dangerous, right? It's dangerous to put yourself out there as masculine, but when you do it, then she gets to be feminine, and she feels the same way about her femininity, right? If it's rejected, it would be the end of the fucking world. It would be the end of the world. Like, I'm not a girl to him. Like, I'm gonna have to kill myself. So, this is a dicey game. There's high emotions here. So, you're saying, well, she never wants to initiate sex. Damn right she doesn't. Damn right she doesn't. You haven't made it fun for her to initiate sex. The only way to make it fun for her to initiate sex is if you do it all the fucking time, right? You should be doing it all the time. And when you do that, that opportunity to be more and more increasingly feminine, which makes her feel more sexual, more sexy, brings up her libido. It's a complex system of feedback, and this doesn't exist in isolation. It's not like just initiating sex solves all the problems, right? It has to do with a holistic masculine presence. So, but that's a hint. It's a clue that might be what's going on, and I would watch that carefully. I would manage that. The more you initiate sex, by the way, it's a double-edged sword. The more feminine she'll feel, the more you're the subject, and she's the object of your lust. The more you play that game, the more feminine she'll feel, the more receptive to sex she becomes, the more excited. She can't wait until you initiate sex, right? It becomes more exciting for her. But also the less she'll do it, because you're making her increasingly feminine, and the more feminine she is, the more she's not going to initiate sex. So it's kind of a self-perpetuating thing. On the other hand, if you don't initiate sex, kill her libido, you're not going to initiate sex then either. So you kind of see how that goes on. Women don't like to initiate sex very much. All right. Okay. Will the PowerPoint slides be made available? Yes. Will it be recorded? Yes. Thank God, no tricking. So if you had to name a few things in which you think the PUAs do them quite well, and which somebody could or even should learn, what would these things be? There's a real benefit to learning about body language. One is their benefit, which is then you can deprogram the system, right? You can reverse engineer it and then simulate, put the veneer of confidence on yourself. But there's two other things that I think are very valuable in that. The first is that when you understand that body language, you notice it in yourself, and you notice that you're not confident. Like if you notice yourself doing all the things that they say are earmarks of unconfidence, then you can observe that in yourself and be like, why do I feel that way? Why am I doing that? In other words, it's great fodder for self-examination and for getting a better understanding of yourself. That's very powerful. It's very powerful. And then the other thing is, often, good posture and all that, smiling a lot, these indicators of high status and body language actually make you feel high status because the mind-body is, really like attached, like, the yoga instructors say. It turns out to be true. So, somebody who like boldly smiles and talks a little louder in a crowded room or speaks more slowly in a group of people because they're not afraid that somebody's going to interrupt them. These are, these solid indicators of confidence also create confidence within you when you do them. So I think that's very valuable. But I think the most valuable thing that pickup artists can teach you is if you go on one of these workshops and they force you to approach woman after woman after woman after woman. They kind of force and they make it into a game. The poor women. I mean, Jesus, I got to have compassion for the poor women. One of these workshops comes into a place and it's what a fucking nightmare for them. But there's something powerful to learn there. It's like there's a really powerful thing to learn there. I've watched Owen Tyler Durden lead these real social dynamics workshops, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun. It takes this thing that's like kind of like really scary and makes it into scary fun. And you've got like a group of brothers with you, and you're all kind of scared together, and then you're forced to walk up to this pretty girl, and she tells you to go away, and that's fine because then you go up to another girl and she tells you, and you go up to the fourth girl, and now you don't care if she says go away. And the moment you don't care if she says go away, she's attracted to you. That's the moment, right? You've lost the transactional thing because you don't give a shit anymore. So there's something powerful to be learned there. I think I think there's something powerful to be learned about just confronting your fears. Let's see. I never liked the Pua stuff. I wandered into it, but something. Yeah, I mean, I don't like it either. I saw these guys. The first thing I thought was like, this is fucking insane. It was the craziest thing I had ever seen. I wanted to do a TV show about it at the time. I was a reality show producer, and I went over there and I actually stayed in Project Hollywood, lived there for 2 weeks in Neil's old room, and I was like, these guys, it was the crazy. It was like, in Cirque du Soleil when the girl can like go all the way back and put her head between her own legs and stuff. It was like that. It was such a fucking mutation. It was like, who would do such crazy shit? But then the second thought was, wait a minute. He's talking to that really pretty girl that I didn't have the nerve to talk to. And it's compelling. It's compelling. Like, what man doesn't want to be able to do that? We all want to be James Bond, right? So it's compelling. But then, a step further, I think that there is a piece of it that feels like really dirty and that ultimately lowers men's self-esteem, because what happens is you already know that you can't walk up to a beautiful woman because you're inadequate. You know that, so I can't do that. And then, you learn this line, the jealous girlfriend opener or something, and you go do that, and you do it 100 times, then it works one day, or it works better. They didn't just, slap you in the face, which is what you imagined would happen if you walked up with that. You never tried it, but you imagined that could happen, right? So you're kind of playing it against your worst case fear of what would have happened if you hadn't learned this stuff, against, you're actually walking up to women and they're talking to you. They're giving you their phone number, like shit's happening. It's the best you've ever done with women. It's the only thing you've ever done with women. It was the best you've ever done with women. And pretty soon, you begin to realize that this fake veneer works better than who you really are, and it proves to you that really you are inadequate and you should never be yourself. So in a way, it undermines like who you really are. And I propose to you that if you just walked up to her and said, hi, my name is Alex, or whatever your real name is, over and over again, that you get exactly the same results. Like, I don't think they're getting better results with these lines. I really don't. You get exactly the fucking same results, just in the nature of, doing it. Okay. Oh, I think I might have hit the bottom. So now I can go back up to the top. Is there a way to build inner value if I don't work? So inner value. Here's the deal. What is value, right? This goes back to the question of like deserve and all this kind of thing. Self-appointment is the only real answer to this question. There's one real answer to it, which is self-appointment. The rest is like, can I like myself a little more? Can I forgive myself a little bit? Can I be a little less, God, I'm so undeserving, you know, so that I can get a little closer to self-appointment? But at the end of the day, man, you know, who decides what value is? That's the problem with inner value, right? The question is, are you internally validated or externally validated? If you're externally validated, then, you know, you need to have some success or whatever. And, you know, people who really need a lot of external validation are incredibly insecure, are very frequently insanely rich because they're accomplishment junkies. The only time they like themselves is when they're accomplishing something, and then that lasts for like 11 seconds, and they have to accomplish something again. I have a whole number of acquaintances who fit neatly into that. And I think a lot of people do, you know. I mean, it's... So that's not the answer, right? So the question is, what's value? And the answer is, there's no such fucking thing. It doesn't exist. It's just like it's a chimera. It's a ghost. It's a fantasy that you use creatively, geniusly creatively, to torture yourself and consider yourself inadequate. And when you wake up to that fact, then you can self-appoint. You can just say, you know what? I'm awesome. Period. Who says so? Me. And it's, you know, it's a giant leap. It's very terrifying. Works like crazy. Could you explain the concept that the more you initiate sex with a woman, the more feminine the woman feels, and the less sex the woman will want to have? No, the less she'll initiate sex. That's the she's going to want sex all the time. The more you initiate sex and the more you make her feel like your little sex object, the more, like, every time you walk in the room, she's going to be wet. Like, that's what ultimately happens, right? That's what you want, right? Every time you walk into the room and you give her that look and she's like, uh-oh, you know, she can feel that there's going to be a tickle fight and kissing and touching and fun and sexiness and like all this stuff. She can feel it coming because you do it all the fucking time. But so she's going to be like all giggly and it's great, and she's going to be very aroused. It's going to be easier and easier to get her aroused, easier and easier to bring her to orgasm, easier and easier to have her want to have sex with you anytime, anywhere. Like when a woman is in her natural feminine state, she's available for sex at all times, at the drop of a hat. Doesn't matter if you're in a taxi cab or, you know, where, it doesn't matter. It's like right here and now. Why? Because to be feminine is to be receptive. It is to be receptive. So if you have something for her to receive, then the more feminine she is, the more receptive she is. To be masculine is to, you know, provoke that, to invoke that, to give, to penetrate, right? So the thing is, she'll initiate less and less, in all likelihood, because she knows you're going to. You know, you walk into the room, she's already right? That's what you're kind of looking for there. Got it. The whole PUA thing eventually becomes a crutch that a man becomes dependent on as a substitute for authenticity. Yeah, I mean, that's the danger. That's the danger. Now, I have friends who, you know, went through the PUA thing and say, before that, I had no confidence. I was a little weenie. I learned confidence. I learned how to be cool with women. And I feel better about me now. And I've integrated it into my personality. And some of them, it seems to be true. I mean, it seems to be true for some of them. Some of them are incredibly deluded. Incredibly deluded. I know a lot of these guys, including guys that teach this stuff. I mean, they have like products they sell online and thousands of guys reading their newsletters. But they are totally fucking incapable of having a real relationship with a woman. They can get a phone number like nobody's business. But they don't get laid as much as you would think. Considering every time they walk up to a woman, they're getting good reactions. They've gotten so good at it. You think they must be getting laid like crazy, but they don't, because somewhere between the bar and home, she's like, well, something's not right here. You might be a serial killer or something. I don't know what, but I'm smelling inauthenticity. And, you know, I don't know if I should be in your home with my panties down if you could be creepy. And so they lose it somewhere along the line. Or it's a girl who really needs 3 dates before she's comfortable having sex, and over 3 dates, of course, there's no fucking way. I mean, but some guys will game it all the way through there, and they end up with a girlfriend, and they're still gaming her exactly the way they did the first night in the club years later. And it's depressing. That's just fucking depressing. So, you know, but I also know guys who integrated, who came through the other side, who like learned what they needed to learn to demystify and de-terrify themselves of this idea of being a sexual man. They got that they could approach a woman and say any fucking thing, and that they could get a decent result just because they were showing up, and that they were like not freaked out. And if you show up and you're not freaked out, you're golden. The problem is that you are freaked out. The problem is that you are like, what do I say that's the right thing to say? And when you're self-amused, when you're not freaked out, you don't give a shit what the right thing to say is. You're just having fun, right? So that's what authentic is. And in that way, you know, a lot of the pickup artist stuff and me meet in the middle there. Like, you know, they're not wrong. You know, that does work, right? There is a sense of just like learning how to get past that initial phase. But for so many men, it becomes their way of being, and then they become all veneer. Like everything in their life is a veneer. And there's no way to lead a fulfilled life that way. It's not a good recipe for liking yourself on your deathbed. And I think I'm through it all. I think I've hit all the questions. If there's somebody whose question I didn't answer, my favorite thing would be if you would click the link and come on and join me live. Any of the live guys want to say something, I'm here for you. Well,
I just posted one.
Talk to me, brother.
I just posted a question in the chat box.
Well, just...
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how is it possible for you to not be able to be extremely attractive to women in bars and clubs? Because you're so truly confident and authentic and stuff. Because I've heard that when a guy is truly confident, he can attract women in any environment, because women are women, regardless of the environment. So how can't you do that? Why aren't you a top pickup artist, kind of?
I think I don't understand the question. So here's what I got. I'm going to break this down in sections, and we'll try and figure it out. Cool. Section 1 is, if you're confident, then it doesn't matter where you are, bar, club, wherever, you can attract women. Yeah. Check. Agreed.
Check. Cool.
Not all women, many women, plenty of women enough.
Many.
Yeah,
Abundance.
Like you. There's going to be a woman that just doesn't like your pheromone smell, right? But many women. Okay. Check. How can you what?
Excuse me. Because earlier in the webinar you said that you're not as good at picking up women as pickup artists are.
Oh, right. Yeah.
How can you not be? Because you're confident, and confidence matters a lot more than techniques. So how can you not be the extremely attractive magnet compared to a pickup artist?
Gotcha. How come I'm not just like a fucking crazy pickup artist? Yeah, okay. All right. So first of all, I'm not the best in the world at this. I'm not the most confident guy on earth. I'm probably a lot more confident than most of the guys who felt like that to be on the webinar because they're not getting laid a lot, right? I'm probably more confident than them, but probably less confident than a lot of other people. For sure. I'm highly internally validated, highly externally validated, but not as much as some other people I know, right? I'm not Brad Pitt, you know. I don't have that level of validation coming in, you know, or Bono up on stage, right? So, you know, let's be honest. I'm not the most confident man on earth, but I have this shit pretty well down. And, you know, so two things happen. One is that's not my most confident environment, right? When I'm in a club, and remember, I'm 48. I'm in a club, and there's all these, you know, 22-year-old skinny models and their little things, and there's all these like kind of douchey 26-year-old steroid guys walking around, and the music's really fucking loud. I don't really like the music that much. I mean, is this where I'm most confident? Probably not. um, get me teaching this seminar. Get me teaching a seminar full of couples, and a lot of the women in that room are going to be pretty interested in me because I'm very confident in this environment. I really know what I'm talking about here. You know, this is a very confident environment for me. Same if I'm at, I go to this salon in New York, which is kind of like this, 100 people get together and talk about intellectual issues. Yeah, well, a new woman comes in there, I'm a very confident dude in that environment, right? But like I said, if you take this multi-millionaire guy who's presenting at a seminar on how to make money, he's the most confident guy on earth, but stick him in an MMA ring, and he may be scared shitless, right? I mean, we're all different in different environments. So that's really what that's about. It's not my most confident environment. And then the other thing is that, I'm uncomfortable, I'm scared, I feel that like butterflies in my stomach to walk up to a beautiful woman and say hello at a club, because I don't do it very much, and because I am under all the same social pressure that everybody else is under. However, when I do it, I'm often very successful. And as I say, I walked up to my current wife at a Halloween party at a nightclub, and I thought she was the prettiest girl in the place, and I thought she looks way younger than she is, and she's half my age anyway, and that was intimidating to me. I was totally intimidated, but I just thought she was so beautiful. I had to. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I did, so I walked up to her and I started talking to her, and the initial reaction was bad, by the way, but ultimately she got to know me. Initially, she thought I was an incredible douche. So, but then the thing is, given the time for a woman to get to know me, she's going to be like, well, this guy's really authentic, and he's masculine, and he's a real guy. Given that time, most women are probably going to be attracted to a guy like me or any other guy who expresses interest in them, who has these characteristics. But if you have these characteristics for real, the real characteristics inside, you express sexual interest in them, they're probably going to get giggly and like that. So, but my ideal environment is not a place where like the first 5 seconds is really important, right? My ideal environment is some place where people are just hanging out, getting to know each other. So I can be in a conversation with, a bunch of people. One of those people might be an attractive woman, and over the course of the conversation, we might not be talking much, but she's noticing me, I'm noticing her, and then, we go and talk over by the peanuts. You know what I'm saying? In an environment like that, I'm deadly, and I think any authentic guy is deadly in that environment, and I think in that environment, a pickup artist is at a huge disadvantage. But in a club, I'm not that confident in a club. That's true. But I can use all of these techniques to be present, to kind of be clear in my masculine intention, and I've done okay. I've done, I would say, better than the average guy that never walks up to women and is terrified of women, which I think is more than half of the men. But probably not as well as Mystery, right? Clearly, obviously.
That's it.
Yeah.
But what are your opinion about the concept of kind of, if you're confident, you can attract women in any setting? Is that true, or?
It is true if you're confident in that setting. Remember
in that setting, yeah.
Yeah, your personality and your confidence are an alchemy, a chemistry, an emergent reaction, an emergent property or a chemical reaction of all the factors in the environment. I mean, let me put it this way. I'm in a dance club, and I'm the oldest guy in the room, and I'm not dressed like everybody else, and I can't hear over the noise. Like, I'm not that confident. Now, add in that the girl I want to approach is standing next to like this huge fucking bodybuilder guy. Like, maybe a little less confident because I'm afraid he might punch me in the nose. Now, let's add in another factor and put me in a foreign country. My confidence is draining by the moment, But now put me in some other club where, I'm not necessarily the oldest guy in the place, or, a lot of the women there are from a local university and they're kind of intellectuals, a lot of grad students there. Well, maybe, now my confidence is up a little bit. I'm starting to feel a little better, right? So, I'm in my hometown. I'm in New York. I'll tell you, I'm more attracted to New York women than I am to Austin, Texas women. I was in Austin for a while, women there are not as attracted to me. You know, it's different crowd. Because I'm not the indie band microbrew guy, right? I'm more the intellectual conversation over a scotch kind of guy. So, you know, frankly, there's beautiful women in every environment you go to, right? There's beautiful brainy college students, and there's, you know, beautiful rocker groupies, and whatever you're into, whatever you really are into, authentically, the thing you love, there's going to be beautiful women that are interested in the same thing. So, you know, for sure, like for sure.
About that, I've heard that the woman that a guy is attracted to the most, like the woman that he most desire, is also the woman that is most attracted to him. Have you heard about that concept?
Nope.
No. Okay. Forget about it.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think there's a fundamental problem with it. I think, which is that. You know, there's a couple of women out there that, like, you know, we all think are super hot. You know, name your favorite Victoria's Secret model, and like, there's a lot of guys that agree. And when she looks out at that vast sea of men that are interested in her, there's going to be some of them that she thinks are really attractive, and some of them that she doesn't. And there are going to be some of them whose personality she likes, and some of them which she doesn't. Some she vibes well with, and some she doesn't. You know, she could be, like I said, there are women who just like love guys that are all tatted up, and there are women that love guys in suits. There are girls that love geeky guys, you know, like science fiction geeky guys. It's just like hot for those guys, you know. I mean, I know a lot of them. So there are women that like every kind of guy, right? But ultimately, there's these fundamental underlying principles that make you generally attractive to women. And then, you know, and then of course she might not like you anyway, right? Because you're just too far afield from her type. Like there are definitely women that are into older men, and there are definitely women who are not. And just, you know, like it'd be really hard for a girl to get past that, and rightfully so, you know, rightfully so. There are girls who really just can't deal with guys who still have to get to know who they are and are still busy, you know, trying to figure out what their career is going to be, and they're so self-absorbed, and like their experience is bad with those men, and they're, you know, rightfully so. And then there are women who are like, you know, I really don't want to get involved with a guy who's going to be really old by the time we have kids, which could have been a legitimate concern for my wife. You know, very legitimate concern. We, you know, of course that would be real. You know, there's some real things about this, but you know, that's the thing with humans. We have very different taste. We have very different taste.
Are you still able to attract women in their 20s, even though you're almost 50 yourself?
My wife is in her 20s.
Hmm?
My wife is in her 20s.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Last question, and then I'll shut up.
I don't want to be that guy, by the way. Just so you know, like I don't want to be that guy. I like women of a lot of different age groups. I think men in general prefer younger women because it's like some genetic thing about fertility and all this kind of thing. But I don't want to be that guy of like how to get younger women. It's like it shouldn't be about that.
Oh no.
People that attract you and people that don't. By and large, older guys who are interested in younger women are very, very fortunate in that, you know, most younger women are at least open to older men, and many prefer older men. And the reverse is not true, right? It's a sad state of affairs that the reverse is not true. You know, we have, you know, as men, we're very lucky. We have enormous options, and it's very frustrating for a lot of women. It's a terrible situation.
Yeah. I just wanted to know if it was possible at all to attract young women. Just to get a confirmation.
Yeah, of course.
But I have one last question, and then I promise to shut up. This guy named Amadeus Helquin is a guru of some kind, and he says that when you announce your truth, you will never lose. How do you perceive that statement? Do you agree or disagree, or?
I agree in the way I'm sure that he intends it. I agree in the way that I'm sure he intends it. If you announce your truth,
he meant it like if you always stand up for what you believe in and always speak your truth about anything, you will always win for yourself.
You'll always win for yourself, exactly.
Yeah, to love yourself and stuff, you know.
Yeah, you love yourself. I mean, and that is really, what's nice about that is it allows you to actually lose, but still feel like you won. And the advantage to that is it lets you practice and feel good practicing. It lets you play the numbers game without ever feeling like there was anything at fault there. You can announce your truth and lose when the stakes are very high. In war you might announce your truth for what you believe is right and go into combat and get killed and pay the ultimate price. But if you were living your truth, I think there's some other benefits conferred to the way you lived your life, since all of us must surely die anyway. And all of us will surely be rejected by some women and suffer some broken hearts along the way. Part of the human experience. Women, too, get their hearts broken. It's very much part of what it is to be human. But if you announce your truth, as this guy says, then, the heartbreak feels okay. You can walk away liking who you are. And I think that is very powerful towards your next relationship as well. And, very powerful just in terms of your happiness with yourself. Yeah, so I'm going to say I agree.
That's cool.
Thanks, man. Anybody else? I got one more in here. Jason says, back to the subject of meditation, is there a particular kind of meditation that you recommend to help with all of this? There is kind of. I'm not a giant expert, but I do meditate, and I enjoy it. And the form of meditation that I like to do is to become very present with my body and my senses. So first I get very focused on my breathing, and every time I find myself wandering into my thoughts, I come back to my breathing, and then I feel the sensation in my hands. And if you focus on the sensation of your hands, you can you'll almost always feel this kind of vibrating warmth when you focus in on it, this kind of almost a numb, vibrating warmth in your hands. You become aware of that and continue to follow your breathing, and then notice the taste in your mouth, the smell in the room, the ambient sounds in the room, and kind of try and take all of it in at once. It's, to me, a very powerful and profound and beautiful form of meditation. Do that for 10 minutes a day. And then what happens is, of course, every 4 seconds or so, you're going to catch yourself wandering on some thought path instead of being mindful and present. And so what you do is you just stop. You do not then, this is the trick, your mind is then going to want to evaluate why you went off into this thought thing, which is its own thought thing, and then you're going to be bad and wrong about thinking about why you were thinking about the thought thing, which is another thought thing. So it's very circular. So what you do is just, the moment you notice, you just drop it and return. No judgment, just drop it and return. And one of the things that you begin to train yourself in is the no judgment thing. If every time you go off wandering and thought, you're like, God damn it, I fucked up again, that you're doing it wrong, okay? The right way to do it is just to drop it and return. Just drop it and return, drop it and return. And it actually also teaches you to stop judging yourself and to really experience your humanity by experiencing it, just noticing it without like having it be good, bad, right, wrong. So that's powerful, I think. And there's something to be learned there, a lesson to be learned there. And eventually you can do it with your eyes open in conversation. But the focus becomes emotions, feelings, the energy between you, the joy of the night, the pleasure of just being alive. That's powerful frame to come from. I'll add one more little metaphor, one little story, because it's also present. I happen to mention my mom, who often I'm frustrated with. I love my mom, right? Everybody loves their moms. I love my mom. My mom loves me. We have a pretty good relationship. But I'm here right now in Mom's house because Mom had some surgery on her shoulder. I'm trying to help out. And I've been here for a couple of weeks, and it ain't easy, right? It starts to get a little more difficult. So I was on the phone with my friend Annie Lala, who is just a mad genius of relationship in general, but parent-child relationship in particular. I think she's maybe the greatest human in the world. So I said, Annie, I don't want to get triggered by my mom. I want to be sweet and nice to her all the time. I don't want to say bad things. I want to be nice. How do I do that? What do I say? And she said, it's not the words you say that matter. I'm not going to give you a prescription of like how to have this conversation. So the words you say are irrelevant. what you want to do is come from the right place in your heart. And if you hold in your heart that, you know, you love her and that you have compassion for her and that, you know, you're caring and that whatever she says, like, you're willing to let it slide off. If you're in that place in your heart, then whatever you say will be the right thing automatically. You don't have to monitor what you say. What you say will be right. Of course. And of course, anybody can see that she's right. That's obviously true. What's exactly the same thing when you're trying to be attractive to women? Like, the more you're monitoring what you say and trying to say the right thing, and like in my case, I don't want to say something, you know, mean. I want to be nice, you know. I don't want to get frustrated, right? But while I'm trying to like monitor like what I'm doing, I'm failing, right? And when you're monitoring what you're saying, like what's the right thing to say to this woman, you're failing. But when you're instead monitoring your emotional state and really trying to get that right, doing the work to get that right, that's where the work is. The work isn't like, what do I say that's going to be charming? What do I say that's going to make her want to come home and fuck me? Forget that shit. The question is, who do I want to be inside? What's the emotional state I want to come from? And when you come from an emotional state of, you know, self-amusement and fun and mischief and sexual attraction, like, oh, she's fucking hot. Like your hotness for her is in the fucking room, you know, and it's fun. And it's fun. If you come from that place, fun and sex, you'll say all the right things. You know, suddenly you'll be cocky and innuendo and whatever. It just comes out right. Or you can't think of a fucking thing to say and you're just like, catch yourself staring at her tits and crack up. And that's charming somehow. Why? Because we're humans, right? Because it didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you know, recite the alphabet. What matters is that you're in the right place in your heart and the right stuff finds its way out. You know, that's what works. All right, fellas, thank you so much for showing up. Yeah, we went for a good long time. I thought we would. I appreciate you guys co-creating this with me. Your questions are what created. I hope it was as valuable as I think it was. I really was psyched to share this stuff because I had a sense that it was something that needed to be shared. I will get this recording up on a page along with those slides just as soon as I can. And I will talk to you guys again very soon. Thank you. And good night.